Mariners is tonight at 5:08. It's going to be Tariq Skubal going against George Kirby. The winner will go on to face the Blue Jays. Game 5 of the NLDS between the Brewers and the Cubs is tomorrow night at 5:08, and no pitching has been determined. They're both still TBD. The Aztecs are on the road tomorrow night when they take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage begins right here at 5:30. John and Rich will have the kick around 7:30. Life doesn't wait, neither should you. Aleve can help you deal with pain and less throughout your day. With just one pill, Aleve lasts up to 12 hours. Don't let those aches and pains hold you back from doing what's important to you. Use as directed.
Previously on Jon and Jim.
Here are their games. Golden State, Minnesota home. At Sacramento, at Portland, at Minnesota, at Memphis.
3-3.
3-3. I was going to ask you, what do you think the record's going to be after 6 games without LeBron?
3-3.
Couple games against Minnesota.
I could see 4-2. That'd be a great start for the Lakers.
Right.
Especially without LeBron. That's why you got Luka.
Now, live from the San Diego Sports 760 studios, it's Jon and Jim.
What's going on, San Diego? Jon and Jim on a Friday. Jon is on his way to Nevada, so me and Brent are holding down the fort for the next 4 hours. Plenty to talk about today on the show. We have a good one for you. Kyle Glazer is going to join me at 4 o'clock. He's going to break down the end of the Padres season. Also, he's going to look ahead to what they need to do in the offseason as well. But, the first thing I thought of this morning was, if I was doing sports talk radio in Philadelphia today, like, how would my day go? Like, what would my prep be? And we've had days here in San Diego where prep is very simple. It's turn the mic on, talk about the Padres, and just let it rip, right? There are some days that you don't even need, in this industry, you don't even need a rundown. You just go on and you're like, we know what we're going to talk about. Especially me, Jon, and Brent, like we just go, right? And I'm thinking, how many days here in San Diego have we had like crushing defeats to talk about with just one sports team? There's been a good amount. Padres, Cubs a couple weeks ago, right? Padres, Dodgers last year. Padres, Phillies 3 years ago. And then I'm like, okay, that was one sports team. That was one team that we had with a crushing loss to talk about. Imagine if you had not one, not two, but 3 sports teams on the same day all lose in epic fashion. And one of them was a loss that ended their season. Another was to one of their bitter rivals. And then the other was the opener of their season. I'm talking about, obviously, the Phillies game last night against the Dodgers. Giants winning last night over the Eagles. And then the Flyers losing their opener of their season. Yeah, I can't compare. There's nothing to compare that to here in San Diego. I mean, we've had some brutal days here. Don't get me wrong. Brutal days. But is last night, with what happened in a span of a couple hours too, it wasn't like something happened in the morning and then something happened in the late afternoon and then something happened late at night. I mean, this was like bang, bang, bang. You went from Phillies' devastating loss to Eagles looking like crap against the Giants to the Flyers losing their opener, all within a matter of like a couple hours. And if you run the overnight shift, the sports talk radio station in Philadelphia, the big one is WIP. If you are that guy or girl or woman that runs the night shift on WIP, dude, your night was, hey, we'll go with the phones. That's it. Yeah. That's
all
Phillies.
night.
That's all night. That's all day. This didn't happen on a Friday, so you had a weekend to kind of hopefully get out of your system, even though it's Philadelphia, so nothing gets out of their system there. But I mean, today's Friday show in Philadelphia, their morning, their midday, their afternoon, their night, it's got to be an all-timer, Brent. Like, it's got to be an all-timer. And I saw this because I'm thinking, like, okay, that's a really bad sports day, like really bad sports day for any city, any major city. But there's got to be worse ones, right? There's got to be a worse sports day out there. You know, when the 49ers lost to the Chiefs in overtime of the Super Bowl, that's a really bad sports day for the Bay Area, right? When your team, if the Padres, you know, lost to the Dodgers in the postseason like they did last year, that's an awful sports day in your town. But there has never been a day, actually there was, but back in 1983, there hasn't been a day since 1983 where a city had their NHL, NFL, and Major League Baseball team lose in the playoffs and be eliminated on the same day. Philadelphia accomplished that last night. The last time that happened, Brent, just guess. I want you to just guess the last time into what city.
Well, it'd have to be a team that has all three of those things. So
right.
I would say probably New York.
Okay. New York?
Maybe in like the 60s.
Okay. Try 1983 in Philadelphia. So the last time that a city had their NHL team, their NFL team, and their Major League Baseball team to lose in the postseason and be eliminated on the same day was in 1983 in Philadelphia. And then last night. Just the most brutal day. I mean, I'm online scrolling and I'm seeing like diehard, you know, Eagles and Phillies and just Philadelphia sports fans claiming that, and these aren't like 20-year-olds. They're in like their 40s or 50s claiming yesterday was the worst sports day in their life. Worst sports day in their life. And honestly, how do you argue with them? Like seriously, if you talk to a diehard Eagles, Phillies, and Flyers fan last night, how is that not the worst sports day of forever? Like how is that not the worst sports day ever?
All the social media flip outs have been pretty funny.
Dude.
There's one where this guy like threw a bunch of stuff and then he turned around and looked at his buddy or his wife that was taping him. He's like, there, you got your stupid reaction from me. Leave me alone. And then he went storming off into his room.
Dude, it was an all-timer. And I tweeted this out last night. You know, there was a moment in time where the sports were sporting. There was a lot happening. You had Phillies Dodgers in that epic pitching duel of a game that ended in extra innings. And then simultaneously, you had Cubs Brewers. Ian Happ hits a 3-run bomb. Cubs win, by the way. They're going on and they forced a game 5 in Milwaukee this weekend. You have Thursday night football, Eagles Giants going on. You had NHL. You had also college football happening last night. I mean, last night, that's an all-time sports night that I can remember, Brent, where everything was happening in every major sport, and it was all crazy. It was all crazy.
Just wait. In 2 weeks, we'll have NBA to throw on top of all that too.
I know. And do we get another night like last night when you throw the NBA on? Maybe. But I think just with how things transpired last night in these games made it to me like in 20 years, if there's not a 30 for 30 or a Netflix documentary on that night alone, I mean, you're missing a golden opportunity, guys. I mean, last night is a golden opportunity for all documentary, producers out there to look at last night and get ready about in 10 years to pump this one out because everybody's going to remember last night.
We should at least get a new It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode about it.
Dude, everyone's just fighting everybody.
They're diehard Eagles fans anyway, so they'll probably do something.
And
Phillies fans.
I'm
they had
actually
that Chase Utley episode a long time ago.
I'm actually heading to Philadelphia tomorrow. So I'm going to be in Philadelphia tomorrow afternoon. And I'll be there all weekend. I mean, the carnage that I'm expecting to walk into. I got a text last night from my father-in-law, who diehard Eagles, diehard Phillies fan. We've been texting throughout the postseason. We always text on game days for the Eagles. And he just flat out just sent in the group chat, yeah, I'm picking new sports teams to root for. Like, I know the Eagles won a Super Bowl last year, but in Philadelphia, that doesn't matter. Like, they don't care. It doesn't matter. If the Padres won a World Series last year, that thing carries on for a decade.
I don't even think it'll be so much carnage as much as it'll just be like depression. Like, remember like post snap and like Infinity War, like it was just trash on the streets and like there's nobody around. That's what it's going to be like, because everyone's going to be so depressed and it's probably going to be cold and
it's going to be raining all weekend. I already looked at the weather. So you got
stay inside and mope.
You got, well, I'm not going to mope. I'll be fine. But it's Aaron, I get home last night and Aaron's on the couch. I walk in, I look at her, she starts shaking her head. I'm like, what the F? She's like, I know. Because I was driving home during the ending of that Phillies game. And we'll get into the ending of the Phillies game coming up in a bit. But I just wanted to talk about the scope of everything that happened last night with, one of the worst teams in the NFL, the Giants, pulling an upset off the defending Super Bowl champions. The Dodgers continuing to get devil magic and winning these games in crazy fashion. And then you have, Cubs forcing a game 5 on Saturday. And then if you're a big college football fan, you got college football on, you got NHL on. And oh, by the way, I didn't even mention not many Sharks fans, San Jose Sharks fans listening to the show today, or much of, any time listening to the show. But last night, the Sharks, it's just totally random, but it just adds a layer to the craziness of last night, Brent. Where if you saw this, you'd be like, what the hell just happened? So Sharks, Golden Knights, the home opener for San Jose. They're in overtime. Puck gets, cleared, but the Sharks goalie decides to run up to the blue line to try to, clear the puck. And he misses the puck and it goes right past him. And the two players on the Golden Knights, you will not see an easier game-winning goal in your entire life. If you have not seen this, go find it. So that just adds on to the craziness of last night with what happened in the Phillies game. And it wasn't anything crazy in the Eagles game, but I think the outcome you could deem to be surprising. And, Cubs, that wasn't like an exciting game, but still forcing a game 5 is exciting. I mean, Cubs have a chance to do something that only 3 other teams in the history of baseball have done in a best of 5 series. Well, actually, no, just kidding. They don't. But down 0-2 to win 3 in a row, like that'd be impressive. So overall, I mean, just one of the craziest sports nights that I can remember. So much happening. And I couldn't get enough of it. I didn't have any dog in any fight. Like, I wanted the Eagles to win for Aaron. Aaron ended up turning that game off like right as the fourth quarter started. And I looked at my phone, and right after she turned it off, the Eagles fumbled the ball. And I'm like, I'm glad she didn't watch that, because she was like, F this team, and just turned the TV off. I mean, she couldn't deal with it. I'm just thinking about what WIP sounds like today. And I texted this to John last night. Brent, you would appreciate this question. How many times today on the entirety of their live programming on WIP in Philadelphia has the producers of those shows used the dump button? Over, under, I'll throw a crazy number out. 10.5. It's a crazy number, but my guess is they've taken close to probably 250 to 300 plus calls today, maybe more.
I'd say it's probably close, but if they started to get towards 10, they'd probably start scolding them and stop taking phone calls until they start behaving themselves.
That's a crazy number,
but I'd say it's probably close.
At least there has to be at least like 2 or 3 every show.
Oh, probably every hour. But at some point, they're going to have to just be like, okay, guys, until you clean up your potty mouths, we're not going to put you on air.
I mean, just a crazy night. Just an absolute crazy night. Coming up on the show today, we have a good one for you guys. Kyle Glazer is going to join me at 4 p.m. Also, we have tickets to give away for a day to remember with Yellow Card on October 23rd at Petco Park at Gallagher Square. So make sure you're listening to win those pair of tickets. We also have tickets to Hallow Scream at SeaWorld San Diego. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Padres back in the news today. You got suspensions, you got fines. What the hell's up with that? But coming up next, I have to break down what the hell happened at the end of that Phillies Dodger game. Just the wildest ending you'll ever see. That's coming up next right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, listen for your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to Howl-O Scream at SeaWorld San Diego. This year, new horrors awaken with 5 haunted houses, 8 terrifying scare zones, hidden speakeasies, and the thrills of Coasters After Dark every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, now through November 2nd. Halloween fun for the whole family for a limited time. Kids go free with paid adult tickets. Visit SeaWorldSanDiego.com for more information. So, Dodgers beat the Phillies. They're moving on to the NLCS once again. Just brutal. But how that game ended, like, that has to be the worst way to not only lose a postseason game, but to lose a postseason game that ended up eliminating you from said postseason in baseball. I honestly can't think of anything worse than that. The pitcher completely freezing, panicking, and throwing the ball away when he had plenty of time to throw it to first base. Like, the absolute worst way to lose. And by the way, if you're thinking like, oh, there's got to be a worse way, like a walk-off home run, Bill Buckner, like this is, and John was telling me last night, and I like, for Philly fans, you got Mitch Williams, all right? The walk-off Gary Carter home run to lose the World Series. But, and this wasn't the World Series, but this is like today's version of that moment, because it ended their postseason run. Do they go up? Do they beat the Dodgers in that game if he makes the right play and goes to first? I don't know. And if they do beat the Dodgers, do they beat them in game 5 with really no pitching because they used it all up in game 4 and Ohtani's on the mound for the Dodgers in game 5 for them? Like, I don't know. And we'll never know. But that is the worst way to lose a game. And Jason Stark tweeted out this: that was the first postseason series in the history of baseball to end on a walk-off error. The Bill Buckner game, they still had game 7.
Yeah, they ended up winning that series, I think.
And by the way, no, Bill Buckner, they didn't. The Red Sox? What are you talking about?
No.
Thinking of something different?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Bill Buckner, Red Sox, ball goes through their legs. Game 7 in New York, Mets and Red Sox. Red Sox actually had a lead in game 7, by the way, and they gave up that lead too. So, different scenarios, but still, it feels the same today if you're a Philly fan, I'm sure. And in the moment, I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? Orion Kerkering. That's a name that, if you're a Philly sports fan, you don't want to mention that name for a while. That's going to be a name that you just don't want to hear if you're a Philly sports fan, like at all. And by all accounts, kid's got some really good stuff. And he had a really good year for the Phillies. And he pitched well in the postseason for him in the series. I think he pitched in, I think he might have pitched in every game of the series leading up to that point, or at least two games of that series. But like in the moment, it is one of the all-time just panic moves in sports. And I can't even imagine my favorite team losing like that. Like I've lived through for the 49ers, NFC title game, Kyle Williams in overtime, fumbles a punt in his hands, punt return, he catches it, he fumbles it immediately on his own 30. Giants pick it up, they score a field goal, they go in the Super Bowl, and they beat Tom Brady in 2011 or whatever it was. That to me is like the closest thing I can think of a what the F type of moment for my team to lose and be eliminated. I can't even imagine, dude. I can't even imagine.
I got 2 the one isn't my team, but that one year when Tony Romo botched the snap on that field goal that was going to win the game in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it would have been like their first playoff win in like 20 some years.
It happened so quickly. Like last night, it happened so quickly. You're like, what the hell just happened?
And the only other one I could think of is when the Bears lost the NFC Championship game to the Packers, when they totally blew the coverage and Randall Cobb had nobody within 40 yards to him on like the last play of the game.
That's brutal. But those weren't like inflicted errors. Those didn't happen because like in that Bears team, whoever was like one of their best players, like if I'm not saying Orion Kerkering was the Phillies' best player, but like if Devin Hester was returning a punt return and like fumbled at the one and then the other team recovered and that was the game or something crazy like that happening. Like this was just the biggest panic move you'll ever see. And, you know, listening to Orion Kerkering post game, man, you got to feel bad for the kid. You just feel awful. He's on the verge of tears. Here's Orion Kerkering at the end of the game, to his credit, like a man, stood up, took questions from the media about what the hell happened at the end of that one.
Off my foot. Just kind of, once that pressure got to me, I just thought it was a faster throw, the JT, a little quicker throw than trying to cross body the Bryce. So, just throw.
Yeah. Did you hear them telling you to go to first at all, or were you just in the moment? It wasn't even
just in the moment.
Yeah.
Can you see JT pointing in that moment, or is it just kind of looking up?
Just kind of looking up, just be ready again.
I mean, a lot of guys at number you first ones there. Just what the guys say you in that room.
Just keep your head up. It's honest mistake. It's baseball. It happens, and just keep your head up. You'll be good for a long time to come. It's not my fault. Just had opportunities to score. Just keep your head up.
Conversation with Rob too. What did he say? What does that stuff mean to you? All those guys picking you up so quick.
It means a lot. It shows they care a lot. Just means everything for sure.
You can hear him there as he's saying that, you know, being asked about his teammates, and he's like, it means a lot, and his voice is quivering, and you just, if you watch the video, you see him on the verge of tears. And when he also mentions, I know it's not my fault, he's also on the verge of tears. It's like, oh my gosh, that kid, if he doesn't have the yips next year, Brent, I mean, that will be amazing. That will be amazing, because that's going to live with him forever. How could it not? That's a forever type of thing.
Oh, that's one of those things. Baseball players have short memories, though, because they have to, you know, you're going to, you know, give up a game-winning home run or hit, especially if you're a relief pitcher. That's going to happen, you know, more than once in your career. So you're going to have to get used to it.
I agree to an extent. If last night Orion Kerkering gave up a game-winning grand slam to Andy Pages, yeah, that's going to suck. But at least in your mind, I feel like if you're a pitcher, you can be like, I went out there, I tried to do my job, and the batter just beat me, right? Like I threw a pitch I wanted to pitch, the batter just beat me. But in the moment last night, the self-inflicted, I froze, I panicked, oh my God, what do I do? That moment, I feel like is a moment for a player that will be very hard to get over. Very hard. All right, coming up next, baseball today handed out punishments for the Padres. Jose Iglesias is suspended a game next year. Xander Bogaerts is fined. We'll talk about that coming up next right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Game 5 of the ALDS between the Tigers and Mariners is tonight at 5:08. It's going to be Tariq Skubal going against George Kirby. The winner is going to go on to face Toronto in the ALCS. Game 5 of the NLDS between the Brewers and Cubs is set for tomorrow night at 5:08. Pitching matchups are still to be determined. In NFL news, the Ravens will be without Lamar Jackson again this week when they take on the Rams, and the Raiders will be without tight end Brock Bowers when they take on the Titans. The Aztecs are on the road tomorrow night when they take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage starts at 5:30. John and Rich will have the kick around 7:30. Member Week is here at Lowe's. My Lowe's Rewards members get up to 40% off hundreds of items, plus free standard shipping. Join for free today at free standard shipping, not available in Alaska and Hawaii. Exclusions and more terms and conditions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms, subject to change.
All right, back here on Jon and Jim. Kyle Glazer is going to join me at 4 p.m. today to put a little bow on the Padres season and look towards the offseason, and also we can talk some postseason baseball with Kyle. So he's going to join me at 4 p.m. today. So in this town, Brent, umpires that you know by name are Doug Eddings, right? He's one of them. I feel like he's the top one. Obviously, Angel Hernandez is known in every city because he is awful. Now he's not an umpire anymore.
He retired.
He did retire, thank goodness. But, he is definitely another one that, CB Buckner is a name that most fans know, right? And I feel like now fans will also, when they hear the name, DJ Redding, like that's going to be a problem. Well, today, Major League Baseball put out disciplines for the end of the Cubs game. And I said DJ Redding. It's DJ Rayner. DJ Rayner. Not DJ Redding. DJ Rayner. And if you didn't know, because it wasn't shown on television, but somebody that was sitting behind the Padres dugout in Chicago when the umpires left the field, because you got to go through the visiting, I guess, dugout to get off the field, or at least get to the umpire room. Jose Iglesias basically started John at these umpires and John at DJ Rayburn. And then DJ Rayburn, looks at Jose Iglesias and starts John back. And then you see Xander Bogaerts enter the frame, and he starts yelling at the umpire. And it was not a pretty scene, I can tell you that. You had Mike Schilt in the middle trying to hold back Jose Iglesias. You had the umpires just, continuing to instigate the situation and be the instigators. And like, instead of trying to calm things down, they just ratcheted things up. And today, Major League Baseball announced that Jose Iglesias next year, whatever team he's on, because he's not under contract with the Padres, whatever team he's on, he has to serve a 1-game suspension. And then Xander Bogaerts is also fined. I don't know how much he's fined, but he was also fined. So, of course, the umpire had to have gotten discipline, right? Had to. I don't know. I mean, that's my first thought is if you're going to fine Jose Iglesias, or at least suspend Jose Iglesias and fine him, and then fine Xander Bogaerts, how in the world do these umpires who make these awful calls that changes the course of games and seasons not get disciplined? Well, I'll tell you how. Major League Baseball umpires have like the strongest union known to mankind. Like, it is impenetrable. Like you cannot discipline an umpire ever. Now, they might discipline them behind the scenes, like take them off certain games or whatnot, but you'll never hear about it. You'll never see any umpire publicly get disciplined for making an awful call that changes the season, or throwing out a player for no reason whatsoever that changes the courses of games. Never. You'll never see that. So when I saw today that Jose Iglesias ended up getting suspended for a game. And then Xander Bogaerts gets fined for yelling at this umpire that missed this blatant ball in an elimination game in the freaking 9th inning. It just makes me even more upset that umpires get away with this stuff.
It doesn't surprise me.
It's not surprising at all. It is
part of baseball's fault anyways. And, they decided to make the umps infallible to where, you can't even question or argue balls and strikes at all, or you'll get tossed. And then that pretty much just became an extension of everything with the ump. You can't question or criticize the ump in post game, or you'll get fined because you can't question anything they do. So when that video leaked hours after the game and it was all over social media, you kind of figured that they were going to get fined or something was going to happen, because if you can't even argue balls and strikes, I don't think they're going to let them just sit there and just scream at them while they're walking through the dugout. So I'm not really surprised about it.
I'm not surprised that they got disciplined either. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have. I think for after the game, for Xander and Jose Iglesias to do that, yeah, that's it. That if you want to say they deserved discipline, okay, I'm not going to argue that. What I'm arguing is this umpire, DJ Rayburn, he wasn't some innocent bystander here. He didn't just walk by these two players without saying something to them and to, make the situation worse than it already was. He didn't take the high road here. Jose Iglesias said something, and then DJ Rayburn said something back. And when you watch it, you see that the other umpires have to hold back DJ Rayburn. They have to hold back him because he's John back at Jose Iglesias. And then he's John, and then he said something that triggered Xander, right? But the two players are the ones that get disciplined for it. Yet I'm sure nothing's going to happen to this umpire.
Well, that's the way it always is. If, Chilty doesn't like a call and he goes out and gets in some ump's face and they start screaming at each other and getting in each other's face, Chilty's the only one that's going to get fined for it. Tom's not going to. It doesn't matter what he says to Chilt, or, one of those deals where, how often do you see them get into it? Then the manager will start to walk back to the dugout, and then the ump will, throw in one last jab because they got to get the last word in, and then the guy will come flying back out of the dugout and everything else. The umps don't get fined because they can't fine them, because that's where the catch-22 is. Because if they fine them, then they're no longer infallible. And so they can't say that you can't question them and then be like, oh yeah, we're going to fine them because they're wrong. It's like, well, they can't be wrong because we're not allowed to question them.
And look, something that Mike Schultz said during the series, or he might have said it before the series. I forget when he said it, but he's absolutely right. With ABS being installed into baseball and implemented next year, thank God, it is going to take a lot for players and managers to get thrown out of a game. Like if most ejections happen because of balls and strikes. Would you say that, Brent? I think most ejections happen because of that. So now with ABS in play, thank goodness, you're going to lose that side of the game where if an umpire misses a call, it's an easy tap on the helmet and you go to ABS. And if it's actually a ball or a strike when the player thinks it's the opposite, it's hard to argue because they're literally going to the replay. So you can't really argue because it's, hey, we went to replay and we saw it was actually a strike, or hey, we went to replay, it was actually a ball, I feel like now in baseball, the only things that you can really argue and get thrown out for will be like check swings. That's all I got. Because you can challenge out calls now on the base paths. You can challenge fair foul. You can challenge home runs. You can now challenge balls and strikes. And so I would be curious to see how many players and managers actually get thrown out of games next year and to see if it goes significantly down.
We'll see. In a way, I think that's the punishment that the umps are getting, is because they're going to get phased out. Major League Baseball can say all they want that, oh no, we're going to keep the umps around because, we still need them for certain things. BS. In the next 15 to 20 years, they will be replaced completely. Because once they get the automatic ball strike thing worked out and perfected, then they're going to move on and go, hey, well, why don't we just do this for check swings too? Because we can't get that right either when we leave it up to the human element. So let's just review that. And it's going to become just like football, to where practically 80% of all plays are going to be up for review.
And last night too, in the Dodgers game, and it wasn't like horrific, but it was still a really bad missed call. Christopher Sanchez on the mound for the Phillies in the seventh inning, the inning that the Dodgers ended up tying the game 1-1 on a 2-strike pitch. Sanchez throws, it's just inside corner. He dots it, called the ball. And now the umpire afterwards apologized to him, said, hey, I missed that call. But at the same time, if I'm Christopher Sanchez, I'm like, dude, I don't want to hear your apology, because guess what? That call potentially cost us the game, because that call ended up leading to a walk, which ended up leading to a run scored. And that run was the walk that was allowed because you missed a strike call. Like, I don't want to hear your apology, dude. Just get it right. And the umpires, thankfully, are slowly getting phased out. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because these umpires are awful. The Padres, their season ended with one of the worst calls you'll see. It wasn't the worst call, but it's up there. It's definitely up there. All right, coming up next. Last night did it. Tush Push, gotta go. Sorry. Tush Push, gotta go. Brent's shaking his head. We'll talk about that next. Coming up on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, back here on Jon and Jim. Kyle Glazer is going to join me at 4 p.m. Also, if you missed it yesterday, Greg Camarillo, we're going to bring that back later in the show as well. Get you ready for a full slate of NFL games this weekend. So last night, Eagles, Giants. Giants pick up a huge win. Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo. They're kind of like leading the way here as far as the new the rookies of the future, the players of the future here for the Giants organization. I love Cam Scatterbo. Like he is
Scatterbo, yeah, I know.
Scatterbo.
Potato. I know. I wanted the Bears to draft him.
I wanted the Niners to draft him. He's just like his bowl game that he had this past year at Arizona State. I mean, it was incredible. And also his year as well. I think his attitude, it's just like he's a psycho. He's a psychopath. And that's who I want on my football teams. I want psychopaths on my favorite football teams. But last night, there was a moment in the game in the first half. Eagles offense has not looked good this year. They have not looked good. Saquon Barkley has not rushed for 100 yards this season in any game. AJ Brown has what? I think under 200 yards receiving this year, maybe a little over. He's been a non-factor offensively. Jalen Hurts has had a fine season so far. 8 touchdown passes, only 1 interception. That 1 interception happened last night, by the way, in the second half. 5 rushing touchdowns, as I'm putting up air quotes, rushing touchdowns. But in the first half, Eagles get the ball down to like the 3. And they run 4 straight tush pushes to get into the end zone. 4 straight tush pushes to get in the end zone. And I'm like, bro, what the? Like, really? And they're showing the replays, and the Eagles are false starting again, and the refs are not calling the false starts. Like, either get rid of it or regulate it to the point where you call the offsides here, the false starts. You make it so it's not such a. I mean, this is like it's going beyond a rugby play now. This is just like a dog pile. Like, hey, we're gonna run the dog pile. It's just not football. Now, again, on one hand, I kind of want them to run the tush push all the time because Jalen Hurts is on my fantasy team, and the more times they're in the tush push, the more touchdowns that he'll get. But from just a viewing perspective, like as a just observer of this game, I didn't have a dog in the fight. I wanted the Eagles to win because of Aaron, obviously, but like I'm not sitting here today being like, I can't believe the Eagles lost. But I mean, that tush push, like, come on, man. I'm not saying you can't do the tush push, but it's got to be regulated here where you can't just false start all the time and dog pile and line up incorrectly. Like, it has to be modified because 1, it's not football. And 2, there's a penalty on every single play for the tush push that's never called. So from that standpoint, like, something's got to change with it. Something's got to change.
I don't have a problem with it. And them doing it 4 times in a row, I don't have a problem with it. You know why? Because they got their asses kicked and they lost. So it didn't really matter. And if they can keep doing it, but if their offense isn't going and they keep losing, it's not going to matter. It'll just kind of become kind of like the wildcat to where it'll just kind of phase itself out because they're going to keep doing it as long as they keep winning and nobody can figure out a way to stop it, which is kind of the thing that's baffled me is we have all these, alleged defensive geniuses in the NFL and not one of them can think of a way to stop, the quarterback sneak on steroids.
It's because, I mean, Jalen Hurts is a 1 of 1 for that kind of scenario. Like I'm not expecting Brock Purdy or Mac Jones or Drake May to be this unstoppable force on the tush push. Like Jalen Hurts, he's the size of a linebacker. Like he is so strong. So it's different. I'm trying to think of another quarterback. Like if Cam Newton back in his day and the Carolina Panthers decided to do this tush push, I think it'd also be unstoppable like it is with the Eagles, because Cam Newton, he was bigger than Jalen Hurts. He was massive. He was probably one of the most athletically gifted quarterbacks in the history of football. Like, built like a linebacker, ran like a safety. Yeah, I could see that if the Panthers did the tush push with Cam in his heyday, that would also be unstoppable. But I don't agree with the, well, if it's so easy, why doesn't every team do it? Well, every team doesn't have a Jalen Hurts. Every team doesn't have the offensive line that the Eagles do. The way they run it, they've perfected it, where they're getting away with these false starts almost every time. Like, they showed a replay last night, once again, where the Eagles are false starting and there's nothing that's being called. And if the refs just really want to do this, they'll just false start every single time. And then the Eagles will stop running it. But if the refs aren't going to call false starts, the Eagles are going to keep running it.
Yeah, I agree. They need to start calling the false starts. I agree with that. But no, I'm part of the team that says that, I don't think it is that easy, because otherwise, if it was, then it's a copycat league. The entire league would start doing it if it was that easy.
I don't think it's easy.
And even with the Bills, Josh Allen's big. He runs all the time and gets lots of touchdowns, but they can get it to work sometimes, but they can't get it to work like the Eagles can. Yeah. You'd think that, the Ravens would be able to do it with Lamar Jackson, but they can't do it. And, like I said, I brought up a couple weeks ago during the Bears game, they couldn't even do a normal quarterback sneak. So there's some teams in the league that can't even just do a normal quarterback sneak, let alone the tush push version of it.
Well, anyway, Eagles, they actually might want to start thinking about doing something other than the tush push, because their offense right now is not good. So maybe they want to, I don't know, try to get Saquon Barkley going, or get a better passing game, or be more creative on offense. Like, that might be something they want to do instead of tush push all the time.
Well, I think the problem they're running into this season is they keep overcorrecting everything. A couple weeks ago, I think AJ Brown was complaining that, nonchalantly about not getting the ball enough. So then the following week, what did they do? They only gave Saquon the ball like 8 times because they were trying to throw it so they could appease Brown. So now now they're just kind of, it seems like every week they're doing too much course correcting to try and appease one of their players while they're hurting another one.
Well, Eagles are 4-2 on the year. Giants, they're kind of turning into a semi-fun team now with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatabo.
Well, they're getting looked at too by the league today, because they didn't.
Oh,
the league saying that they didn't go through proper concussion protocol with Jackson Dart. So
no S. I mean, you see Daboll on the sideline yelling at the freaking doctor, like, get him in the game. Of course they're going to get investigated on that. All right, coming up next, we have found the next off-season player that we will talk about basically every day for the Padres. We have found that one player. I'll tell you who that player is coming up next.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Game 5 of the ALDS between the Tigers and the Mariners is set to get underway here in about 2 hours at 5:08. It's going to be Tariq Skubal going against George Kirby. The winner of that game will go on to face the Blue Jays for the right to go to the World Series. Game 5 of the NLDS between the Brewers and Cubs is set for tomorrow at 5:08, and neither team has announced a starting pitcher yet. In NFL news, there'll be no Lamar Jackson for the Ravens on Sunday against the Rams, and for the Raiders, there's going to be no Brock Bowers for the second straight week when they take on the Titans. The Aztecs are on the road tomorrow night when they take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage begins right here at 5:30. John and Rich will have the kickoff around 7:30. Lowe's knows Sundays hit different when you earn them, so we're helping you out with deals on top brands like Scott's, Pit Boss, Cobalt, and Trex Decking. So get to Lowe's, get it done, and earn your Sunday. Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
Previously on Jon and Jim.
Here are their games: Golden State, Minnesota home, at Sacramento, at Portland, at Minnesota, at Memphis.
3-3.
3-3. I was going to ask you, what do you think the record's going to be after 6 games without LeBron?
3-3.
Couple games against Minnesota.
I could see 4-2. That'd be a great start for the Lakers, right? Especially without LeBron. That's why you got Luka.
Now live from the San Diego Sports 760 studios, it's Jon and Jim.
All right, hour 2 of Jon and Jim on a Friday. Kyle Glazer is going to join me at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. Also, we have tickets to give away here on the show as well. The Hallow Scream. Also, tickets to see A Day to Remember with Yellow Card. So stay listening for your chance to win that. So last offseason, Brent, who was the one player that me and John talked about obsessively every single day almost of the offseason?
Probably that Duran guy from the Red Sox.
Roki Sasaki.
Oh yeah, the other guy.
Duran was
He was in season.
He was in season. He was the trade deadline. Roki Sasaki was the offseason. And boy, did we spend a lot of time on Roki Sasaki. like a lot of time. There was no other show in this town that talked about Roki Sasaki more than us.
The Dodgers still haven't talked about him as much as we did in the offseason.
But now Roki Sasaki has turned into the pitcher that we were hoping the Padres would have gone out and gotten. And that is an absolute stud. Like an absolute stud. Guy pitched 3 scoreless innings last night for the Dodgers. He's closing out games. He's throwing 100 with literally an unhittable splitter. You know, he was awful to start the year. Had bust written all over him. Went down to the minors. Came back at the end of the season. Dude's throwing 100. Like, wait, what happened? I mean, he could barely top 94. He was getting rocked. And now he's just putting up 0 after 0 after 0. I mean, of course, right? So we spent all offseason talking about Roki Sasaki. I think I found the next Roki Sasaki, or at least the next player that we will spend a good amount of time on this offseason. It's all dependent on one thing, though. And that one thing is, in order for us to talk about this player a lot, I need at least one rumor. I need at least one mention of the Padres being interested. Then it's game on. Once I get that, we will be talking about Murakami all offseason. Now you might ask yourself, like, who, Jim? Excuse me? Murakami. I'm probably butchering his name, and I apologize. But if you watch the WBC and you watch Team Japan, and you're like, man, that first baseman, that third baseman, that guy's got some pop. Well, he is the next big thing to come out of Japan. Murakami is a power hitting first baseman and third baseman. He's 25 years old. In one season in 2022, he hit 56 home runs and drove in 134 with a 318 average and a 1,168 OPS. He is the thump that the Padres desperately need. And oh, by the way, he fills a need on your team. You need a first baseman? Look no further than Murakami. Now, the whole thing will have to be the same process like Roki Sasaki, right? Posting fee. You have to basically woo him to pick you. This isn't like a traditional free agent type of situation where you could hopefully offer him the most and he decides to go to your team. You have to go through the same process that you went through last year with Roki Sasaki. But Murakami is the bat that I feel like the Padres desperately need. And if you can't go out and get Kyle Schwarber, who will now become a free agent, and we'll talk about Kyle Schwarber as well, then I'm looking at Munetaka Murakami. Lefty power bat, first baseman, 25 years old. Dude rakes. Dude absolutely rakes. I'm just looking at his season logs here. From 2019 to 2024. Now, this past year dealt with some injuries, but still, in 69 games last year, he hit 24 home runs. So the power is there. Okay. But this is what he did from 2019 to 2024. 36 homers, 28 homers, 39 homers, 56 homers, 31 homers, 33 homers. Like, I just need one rumor. That's it. I just need one freaking rumor that the Padres are interested. Now, at this moment in time, they're not on a list. They're not on a list. All right. The rumor list has begun, and the Padres aren't there. But that could change. Now, do I think the Padres would go out and land this guy? Like, probably not, because they've struck out so many times on highly profiled Japanese players in the past. Do I think this is the one they land? My guess is no. But if they've been in on essentially every mega superstar Japanese player in recent history, why wouldn't they be in on this guy? Why would they not be in on Murakawa? I mean, that to me, it kind of feels like a little bit of a no-brainer. But Mark Feinsand, he wrote today that there are a bunch of teams already looking at Murakami. All right. And I know I am just butchering the hell out of this guy's name. I'm so sorry.
You're actually not.
I'm not?
No.
So it is pronounced It is pronounced the way I've been saying it?
Yeah, it's Taka.
Murakami?
Yeah, you got the last name done.
Okay. Murakami.
Yeah, it's just the first name is more Taka at the end of it.
Okay. Murakami.
I Googled it.
I Googled it too, but I couldn't find like an actual pronunciation of it.
If you put punctuation at the end of it, they'll give you like videos of it, of people saying it.
So Mark Feinsand writes this, and it's just, what's going to happen here. We all know what's going to happen here. What's going to happen? He's going to the Dodgers. Like, it's just, what's going to happen.
You's going to tell him how awesome Chicago is.
That too. Or, I don't know, Roki Sasaki, Yamamoto, and Ohtani. That's a pretty good 3 players to recruit one of their former Team Japan teammates, right? Mark Feinsand writes this. Roki Sasaki is doing his part to help the Dodgers in their quest for a second straight World Series title, but the next Japanese star could be on his way to the majors in the coming months, thanks to the Dodger superstar. Okay, it's over. He's going to the Dodgers, right? I mean, he's going. He's going to the Dodgers.
Oh wait, Schulte says it's almost a lock.
He's still going to the Dodgers,
just like he did last year.
Exactly. So Mark Feinstein wrote about the teams that would be in on Murakami. All right. He has the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Red Sox, the Mets, the Yankees, and the Mariners. Okay. Now, again, it's a long offseason. I just need one mention of the Padres. And then I'm all in. Like, then I'm all in. And it's going to suck as soon as he signs with the Dodgers or the Giants or the Mets or the Phillies, right? And I'm seeing in the chat he's going to be expensive. I don't care. Like, the Padres have money freed up this offseason. They got about 60 plus million freed up. Now, that money will go to some guys that are getting their contracts as far as like their pay goes will go up. Like Nick Pavetta's going from $1 million a year to $22 million next year. The AAVs, I get the AAV, but like what he's going to be paid this season will be $22 million. Machado's number goes up. Toddy's number goes up. But that's a player that I feel like would fit in perfect for this team. Murakami, power hitting left-handed bat that can play first base, be your DH. I feel like this offseason, if you really want to fix your power problems, you go out and get a thumper. You go out and get a big-time bat. Because if you're going to sit here and you're going to have just this minimal offseason where you make a couple moves on the outer edges of the team, and you're sitting there, and all I hear from AJ Preller and the organization is, well, we have the guys here, and all they need to do is hit. Well, guess what? You're probably going to suffer the same fate as you suffered this past year. Hope is not a strategy. You have to go out and you got to add. And adding a power bat like Murakami or Schwarber, like, I know it's easier said than done. I get it. It's like almost like MLB The Show type of thing. But at the same time, you're at the big boy table. Go act like it. Go sign a big bat to help you put you over the top.
Real quick, because we're up against it. Is he going to cost more or less than Cody Bellinger would cost?
I mean, I see the Cody Bellinger name out there as well. I don't know yet, Brent.
Because he can play all the outfield at first.
Yeah, he can.
And he's left-handed bat.
He can.
But I feel like he's going to be expensive. But if this Japanese dude's going to be expensive too,
my guess is Cody would cost more. Because you got to go through a posting fee with Murakami, and that's the big draw to these Japanese players that are being posted, is they're not costing you $300 million. Like, some of these players would cost, like a Pete Alonso. I don't know what Schwarber's going to get, but it ain't going to be cheap. It ain't going to be cheap. All right, coming up next, still stay listening for your chance to win some Hallow Scream tickets. Also, tickets to A Day to Remember with Yellow Card. We're going to give away a pair of those tickets later this hour, so stay listening for that. But coming up next, San Diego State football has a huge game tomorrow night. I'll tell you why it's such a big one. Coming up next right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, the Aztecs go on the road to Nevada tomorrow night to take on the Wolfpack. Our pregame coverage begins at 5:30 p.m. John and Rich will have the kick around 7:30 right here on your home for the Aztecs, San Diego Sports 760. Speaking of the Aztecs and how important the game is tomorrow night, we touched on it a little bit yesterday on the show, but the more I'm thinking about it, this game is so important. I think it's one of the more important games of the season with how the first 5 games have gone for the Aztecs because of this. If you win, you go to 5-1 into your bye on the road following the bye week at Fresno State, where Fresno State could also be a 1-loss team. A rivalry game for the oil can. And it sets you up for a very, very big matchup with Fresno State from the standpoint of, we're talking about Mount West Conference, like potential title game implications at stake here. If they can get through Nevada. Now, it would still be very early. They still have a bunch of games remaining on their schedule. And look, they could slip up for sure, even if they got past Nevada and they did get past Fresno State. But it's the first real big test for San Diego State to put themselves in the upper echelon of the Mountain West Conference, in year 2 under Sean Lewis. And it starts tomorrow. It really does. It starts tomorrow. And like I said, the more I think about it, tomorrow is a massive game for the rest of the season. It sets up a lot. You go out tomorrow night and you lay an egg like you have the first 2 road games of your year. I know they beat NIU, but still, it wasn't a good game. Okay. It will set you up for the big matchup against Fresno State coming off the bye. So Sean Lewis on the coach's show last night talked about what this team needs to do to pick up a win against Nevada tomorrow night.
The ball, right? We got to value the football. And it's just one of those things, again, we've done at an elite level, and it's one of those brilliantly boring skills. But again, it's so important they name the game after it. So we got to value it in all phases. Obviously, when we have it, we got to keep it. When they have it, we got to take it away from them. Teams have been very opportunistic against their offense, right? There's been multiple turnovers in each and every single game. We got to go produce some of those. Other teams have been able to do that. The Aztecs haven't done that. We got to go do that, right? And I know they're getting coached up on that side, right, about the value of the football as well. And then within the kicking game, they do some good things. Their punter is elite with all different types of balls and kicks that he has. So that thing's going to be rolling around, and we can't lose a cheap one there. So the ball is everything. And then again, it is the basic fundamentals that we need to execute at a high level. We got to communicate. We got to win the pre-snap. They're going to try in formation, do some things, some of the 2Q packages. I still think we're going to see that, right? And so got to be gap sound, got to play with great pad level, got to play with violent hands, got to get multiple hats to the ball, got to strain, we got to fight, we got to finish. It's going to be a hard-fought battle.
So they open up as a 7.5-point favorites tomorrow night on the road. The Aztecs do. That's great, but with the way that they've played on the road this year, I'm going to need to see it. I'm going to need to see it tomorrow night. That's just how I feel. Because if they won the game tomorrow night, Brent, 9-6. Yeah, okay, cool. You're 5-1. I can't look I can't look past 5-1 too much. But it's just the way that they will have played on the road will be concerning, because you're now in the conversation, in the Mountain West Conference. I feel like if you pull off a win tomorrow night, start 2-0 in the conference, you're 5-1 on the year. Big test against Fresno State in 2 weeks. But I'll still have my reservations. I'll be great home team right now, but on the road, that winning games 9-6 or 6-3, it's not sustainable.
I'd be more worried if they're doing that at home, to where
right.
It hasn't turned into a trend yet, to where they're not scoring it on the road and then they're not scoring at home, and it's Yeah, they're scoring a lot at home, which
40
is
points per game.
which is has me not worried about it too, to where it seems like it's more trending in the direction of how they're playing at home, opposed to trending in the direction that they've played in the handful of road games that they've had.
So the remaining schedule for San Diego State, you got Nevada tomorrow night on the road. Like Brent said, 7.5-point favorites. You have then a bye week. Then you go on the road to Fresno State. That could be like the game of the year that you circle at the end, at the end of the season. You look back and you're like, wow, that was the biggest game of the season. Then you come home and you face Wyoming. Then you go on the road to Hawaii. Hawaii, not going to be easy. Then you have 2 straight home games against Boise State and against San Jose State. Not the easiest games. And then you finish on the road at New Mexico. So if they go out tomorrow night and they put out a good showing, tomorrow I feel like will be the official, like, the hype might be real game. And then if they can get past Fresno State, then the hype is 100% real. That's kind of how I feel. What they've done at home, you're like intrigued. You're like, huh, this is new and exciting. Like, I like this. I like this version of the Aztecs, but they still need to do it on the road. And then if they go out tomorrow night and they put out a good showing against Nevada, then you're like, huh, okay, I like it even more now. And then it gets to the Fresno State game. And if they can get past Fresno State, if they can get past them, now we're cooking. Now we're absolutely cooking with hot oil here. Now I feel like the mindset for the rest of the season is, okay, this team's got a legitimate shot at a Mountain West Conference title. Obviously, easier said than done. A lot needs to happen in these next 2 games on the road. But the cool thing is, like, it's there in front of them. It's there for them. They don't have to worry about, like, oh, this team needs to do this team needs to do that for us. Like, no, it is in front of them. And can they go on the road and play much better football? Because that's the question with this team through 5 games this year. Really good at home. Can they be better on the road? And we'll find out tomorrow night. All right, coming up next, if you missed our conversation yesterday with Darnay Tripp, you're going to hear that coming up next. But right now, caller number 7, you want a pair of tickets to see A Day to Remember with Yellow Card on October 23rd at Petco Park at Gallagher Square. Caller number 7 right now, you will win a pair of tickets to see A Day to Remember with Yellow Card on October 23rd. 877-767-4760. 877-767-4760. Caller number 7 will win a pair of tickets to see A Day to Remember with Yellow Card on October 23rd at Petco Park. All right, coming up next, our conversation with Darnay Tripp. Also, Kyle Glazer is going to join me at 4 p.m. Stay right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Game 5 of the ALDS between the Tigers and the Mariners is set for tonight at 5:08. It's going to be Tariq Skubal going against George Kirby. The winner of that will go on to face the Blue Jays for the right to go to the World Series. Game 5 of the NLDS between the Brewers and Cubs is set for tomorrow at 5:08. And there has been no pitching matchups have been determined as of yet. In NFL news, the Ravens are going to be without Lamar Jackson on Sunday when they take on the Rams. And there's going to be no Brock Bowers for the Raiders when they take on the Titans. The Aztecs are on the road tomorrow night when they take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage begins right here at 5:30. John and Rich will have the kick around 7:30. Lowe's knows Sundays hit different when you earn them, so we're helping you with the deals on top brands like Scott's, Pit Boss, Cobalt, and Tex Decking. So get to Lowe's, get it done, and earn your Sunday. Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
All right, back here on Jon and Jim. So let's see here. Padres got eliminated last Thursday. So we're 8 days past the Padres being eliminated, and still we have heard nothing from the organization. It's been radio silent. If we get to next week, Brent, and we get to the middle of next week, and there's still nothing, like, that's a little interesting. Maybe they're working on a contract extension and we just don't know about it yet. And that's where we started the conversation yesterday with Darnay Tripp, who joined us. If you missed the conversation, I'm going to bring that back for you right now. We started off with asking him his thoughts about what they're going to do or what he thinks they're going to do with AJ Preller.
I am under the impression that we will be hearing from AJ Preller at some point. You know, I think they like to talk things over in-house a little bit before they then talk to us. And so I am under the impression, my guess would be sometime next week we will hear from AJ Preller. Last year it took 10 days, and I did this out of curiosity. I went and looked. It was 10 days after the loss to the Dodgers that we heard from AJ Preller. And so I would assume at some point, probably next week, we'll get a chance to hear from him. I'm sure the extension part of it will be a question if that isn't already settled. And then obviously what he wants to accomplish as far as the roster is concerned and what his perspective was on a season that had a bit of an unceremonious ending.
Did you have any takeaway from John Seidler's letter to the fans, or do you feel like it was pretty basic, par of the course?
Yeah, I mean, pretty similar if you really wanted to read into it. And I don't think that there's anything to read into it. You know, Peter Seidler, when they went through that nightmare of a season in 2023, and he said, you know, our leadership has my full support or full confidence. I forget exactly how he worded it. Whereas, you know, John Seidler didn't necessarily offer that part of it up, just that, you know, the wild card exposed some weaknesses, thorough review, but that's kind of what we've heard in the past. And so I wouldn't take too much from it. I would love to hear from John Seidler. I'm very curious who John Seidler is and what he's like. And I would love to know what he thinks about the team and his outlook on the organization. And I'm sure all the gathered reporters around San Diego would have lots of really compelling questions for him to answer. So my big takeaway is, will we have an opportunity to actually ask John Seidler some of these questions? Now, it's not like Peter Seidler was talking at the end of every season. In fact, when we heard from Peter Seidler, it was often because there was some big news, or Ron Fowler after 2019, you know, when things aren't going great. But I would like to hear a little bit more from the chairperson, the chairman of the organization. I think we're all very curious, you know, what he has to say and just kind of his perspective on the organization and what their vision is moving forward.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I completely agree, but it does seem unlikely, but completely agree. Darnay Tripp, NBC7 is with us. Do you feel like, you know, the expectation now is to get into the postseason? So are we all just sitting around and waiting again in 2026 for for the playoffs to start when you consider how 2024 and 2025 ended, which is very similarly. Couldn't score against the Dodgers in 2024, the last 2 games. Couldn't score by and large at Wrigley Field, just 5 runs in the 3 games, and they were close to getting shut out in game 3. As in, are we waiting just for next postseason? And do we have confidence that they, quote unquote, like get it right in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to read anything into what Seiler said, it's that, he acknowledged that there were some weak spots in the organization. And, Kevin Acee did a good job kind of diving into what those might be. Obviously, there's the clear issue with the lack of slug and the lack of power. And then, maybe kind of from a leadership standpoint, what does that look like going forward? I think the good news is you just do the mental exercise of who's coming back. And really the big question mark in terms of the lineup is first base. And you figure they'll have some money if Cease, with Cease becoming a free agent, Suarez and King, I would guess probably testing the market, the Hosmer money coming off the books. And so I would think that there's money and opportunity there. Clearly they need power and they need slug. And so that would be like 1A for me. And you're right. I mean, it's something they need. I think, as far as the last 2 seasons, how they ended, I think 2024, nobody could have ever, if you watch this team, nobody would have ever thought they'd go 24 innings without scoring a run. It's completely unthinkable.
Right.
This year, the end of the season was incredibly predictable because they were bad against playoff teams on the road all year and could not score consistently against those teams. And guess what they did at Wrigley? And so I think that's where that's frustrating. Winners find solutions, right? They had all year. They did not find a solution.
No, they did not. With, how the season ended and how bad the offense was this year. It was bad. There's no way around it. I mean, second to last in baseball in home runs. From where they were last year to where they were this year, it was just for the amount of money that they put into this lineup, it was basically unacceptable. And with that being said, if Preller is going to return, which by all accounts, it looks like he is. Mike Schilt, he ain't going anywhere. You can't fire the players. Do they make a change, you think, with some people on this coaching staff, a la Victor Rodriguez?
I don't know. And I say everything I just said. And if Ramon Laureano is healthy, they probably win that series.
Right.
So it's like, true. That's the tough part. Now, even without Ramon Laureano, they should have been good enough. They didn't have him for most of the season. They should have been good enough to win that series. I always struggle with kind of the coaching thing. Like, you talk to any of us around this time last year or last summer, and we're like, okay, the Padres found the hitting version of Ruben Niebla. And now all of a sudden, Victor Rodriguez is no good.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not smart enough to really know the answer to that question. How much of it is personnel? How much of it is approach? I think there's a lot of conversations about like, hey, how come they're not elevating the baseball, like pull side? Like there's that sort of thing. Is that playing into an approach? Because that seemed to be kind of one of the common threads amongst the guys. And that was something we saw a little bit more of from Xander and from Tatis and Manny and Merrill as the season went on. And so maybe there's hope there, but I don't know. And like I guess I just don't know what impact that would necessarily have. And I think that just kind of goes to the larger conversation about like managers in baseball, coaching in baseball in general. Sure, it can have an impact. Certainly, we praise Ruben Niebla like crazy. Mike Schilt pressed all the right buttons last year, wasn't so on the money this year. But Tatis Arias Machado went 0 for 11 and 2 losses. And Jake Cronenworth went 0 for 11 for the series. That's probably where this whole thing went south.
We spent some time, Donate Trip NBC7 is with us. We spent some time today. I forget what we were reading into, maybe Kevin's article, talking about what comes next for Preller and the organization. And we went down this path that we've gone down before, which is like, could they potentially hire a general manager?
I'll read it. It says that, however, those people in the organization have cautioned that the parties still have to discuss the terms and parameters of an extension for AJ Preller. And importantly, what is expected in terms of day-to-day operations going forward.
So like I looked it up at ChatGPT, and I don't know 15 of the 30 teams have a president of baseball operations and a GM. Let's say it might be more than that. 15 to 20 have a VP and a GM. Is that necessary? We've entertained this conversation before. Does that have any value or not from a Padres perspective?
I don't know, because when you take inventory of the season, I mean, do you give AJ Preller a failing grade?
No.
I don't know that I do.
Well, I would argue. See, Jim went down that path. I would argue. Does it help Preller? Does it help them? Does it give them some type of advantage that they don't otherwise enjoy?
Maybe. I just don't see where they would have done a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And I'm on the spot. There might be an obvious thing that they missed on at some point, since last winter. But given the financial constraints, maybe the GM would have had a connection to Roki Sasaki and he could have landed that deal. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel like the whole winter turned when they signed Nick Pivetta, and then he was awesome. And there just wasn't a whole lot more they could do outside of, maybe you could say like the guys that they signed, Gurriel, Hayward, Connor Joe, Martin Maldonado, like that didn't work out, So maybe that could have been better. But given what he pulled off at the deadline, I just, when I think of, what went wrong with this team this season, you could go really far into the weeds and said, hey, if they weren't paying Xander Bogaerts $25 million, but I think we've mentioned that like ad nauseum, like we know that kind of is what it is. Preller isn't kind of like too close to the top of the list for me as far as how 2025 played out.
Yeah, because after 2021, we were talking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then AJ Preller went on to have some really successful years. I know 2023 was an epic failure, but they've had 4 straight winning seasons. Like, think about that. Even though they failed in 2023, they went 82-80. So they've had
such a backdoor winning season. That was not a winning season. I don't care what the record says. That was not a winning season.
Agreed.
They did not have a winning record. They did not win 82 games. I don't care what the record says. That wasn't a winning season.
Technically, for my argument, Darnay, that's what I'm saying. I'm sticking to it. All right.
I know what the record says. I know what the facts say. We watched it. It wasn't a winning season.
I know it was really bad. But now I do like the fact that what was said in Kevin's article today and in the letter by John Seidler is it seems like, just making the postseason now isn't good enough, which I appreciate. And I think fans should appreciate, because setting the bar at the highest standard possible until you reach it is what you want your favorite team to do. You don't want them to be just like, well, celebrate that we just made the postseason. Like, no, this needs to turn into a World Series. I don't know. I found that very refreshing, and I hope Padres fans look at that in the same light.
Well, and the other thing too is like, this is really their first postseason letdown. Like in terms of like what they accomplished beyond like reasonable expectations, just even if you like to dumb it down to seeding, like, and they were on the road, they were the lower seed against the Cubs, but like 2020, they win the wild card, they faced the Dodgers. The Dodgers won the World Series, whether you think it's a legit World Series or not. 2022 obviously exceeded expectations. 2024, they host and they go toe to toe with the Dodgers. They should have beaten them, but they were the road team in that series. I think most people from the outside probably expected the Dodgers to win, although the Padres were really, really good at that juncture. But this one feels like it's always upsetting and sad and a bummer when you lose. But I felt like this is like the first like letdown. Like they didn't win a series, and they never looked all that good at any point in those 3 games. And so you're right. I think that was, John Seidler could have very easily said, hey, great season. Thanks to the fans, back in the postseason, we look forward to more, and could have left it at that. But there was seemingly some urgency.
Don't say that.
That's why we hate the media.
To improve and to continue to take steps. And so, Jim, I think you're spot on there.
Yeah, urgency is a bad word in this town. Can't use it. We'll all get fined for it. All right, coming up next, Kyle Glazer. He's going to join me at the top of the hour. Stay with us right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
Hey guys, it's Schaefer again, and there is no better time than now to get down to your local Toyota dealer with new vehicles arriving daily, including their most popular cars, trucks, and SUVs. We'll get back to the trucks in a moment, but whatever kind of vehicle you're looking for, hurry into your Toyota dealer today because it is Trucktober at your Toyota dealer. The best time to get into a new Toyota truck. They've got the largest inventory of Tacomas and Tundras ready to roll. The Tacoma is known for its legendary toughness, off-road capability, and everyday efficiency, perfect for weekend adventures or just tackling your to-do list. And the Tundra brings serious power, impressive towing capacity, and bold design, plus the latest tech and comfort features. Whether you need a truck that's built for the trails, built for work, or built for your family's next adventure, Toyota's got you covered this Trucktober. We make it easy. See your Toyota dealer today.
All right, Kyle Glazer's going to join me at the top of the hour. We have a game 5 tonight in Seattle. Tigers and Mariners. Tariq Skubal on the mound for the Tigers. If the Mariners were to win tonight, that would mean that the Tigers would lose both Skubal starts in the series. Hard to think that the Tigers would lose 2 Skubal starts, right? Now, both are on the road. Okay. Lost game 2. But like I don't see that happening. Tariq Skubal has been incredible this postseason. He's 1-0 in 2 starts with a 1.84 ERA in 14 2/3 innings pitched, 23 strikeouts, and get this, a .82 whip. In his postseason career, Brent, he's 2-1 with a 2.14 ERA in 33 2/3 innings pitched, 43 strikeouts, and a .80 whip. Good luck, Seattle. Like, I want Seattle just as bad as a lot of people want Seattle that aren't Seattle Mariners fans to win this series. Just because it's a good feel story. Seattle hasn't won anything in literally forever. And the Tigers haven't won anything in forever either. But I think if you were to ask most people, who would you want to root for as like the Cinderella, not underdog story, because they're not underdogs, not especially not Seattle. I think I would choose the Mariners. And I'm telling you, don't be surprised if the Tigers are the team that just all of a sudden they're in the World Series. They had an awful ending to their season. They finished with 87 wins, but they were the 6th seed. They're kind of one of those teams that nobody picked to win or go far in the postseason. And they're a win away from heading to the ALCS.
Well, it's because they just, they're kind of like the Mets, only they made it into the postseason, and everyone just kind of wrote them off because they were playing so crappy that they didn't think they had a chance.
Right.
But they're the prime example of one of those things where you got to get hot at the right time. And they sucked down the stretch of the regular season, but then as soon as the postseason started, they flipped it over and they started playing better.
Now, the Tigers do end up winning this game tonight, which I kind of think they are with Tariq Skubal on the mound.
Still got to score.
I know. But that would mean in the ALCS against the Blue Jays, Skubal won't be available for games 1 and 2. He'll pitch game 3 and then be available, I'm guessing, for a game 7 on short rest. But you got to get to a game 7 first. And Blue Jays are going to be a tough out. There's no doubt about it. Their offense is it's humming right now. And with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. playing the way he's playing, so if Seattle wins tonight, do you give them a chance to beat the Blue Jays, or do you feel like the Blue Jays are going to go to the World Series? I kind of feel like right now Blue Jays are in the driver's seat, and either the Mariners or the Tigers, doesn't matter. I don't think one matchup is per se worse off for the Blue Jays than the other. I think the Blue Jays match up with anybody, to be honest with you. And it would be hard for me to take either the Tigers or the Mariners against the Blue Jays in the ALCS. That's just how I feel, even though I want the Mariners. They've been a great story this year. Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, 60 home runs, division title, first postseason win at home in over 2 decades. They're an easy team to root for. But do I think they're going to get past Skubal tonight? Probably not. And even if they did, do I think they're going to get past Toronto? Probably not. So at this moment in time, I think that looking ahead, we still have to determine who the Dodgers' opponent will be in the NLCS. And we got to determine tonight who the opponent for the Blue Jays will be in the NLCS. But I think the 2 teams that are already in the NLCS, Brent, will be in the World Series facing off against each other. And that would be, to me, the Dodgers and the Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays won 4 out of 6 against both of them in the regular season.
Yeah.
So
I think we're on a collision course for the Blue Jays and Dodgers in the World Series. And then I put my Blue Jays hat on. as I'm guessing most of America would, because the Dodgers suck. The Dodgers they're awful. Their fans are awful. The team is awful. I hate Shohei Ohtani. So we'll find out tonight who represents the American League to face the Blue Jays in the ALCS. And then tomorrow night, Brent's Cubbies will take on the Brewers, which team will face the Dodgers in the NLCS. So can't wait for that. A lot of stuff going on this weekend. But coming up next, Kyle Glazer. We'll talk about the postseason with Kyle coming up, and we'll also put a bow on the Padres season as well. Kyle Glazer joins me next right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Macy's Backstage. Game 5 of the ALDS between the Tigers and the Mariners is set to get underway in about an hour at 5:08. It's going to be Tariq Skubal going against George Kirby. The winner of this game will go on to face the Blue Jays for the right to go to the World Series. Game 5 of the NLDS tomorrow between the Brewers and Cubs is set for 5:08. And as of right now, there is still no pitching matchups have been announced. In NFL news, there's going to be no Lamar Jackson going this Sunday against the Rams for the Ravens. And for the Raiders, tight end Brock Bowers is out for the second straight week. He will miss this week's game against the Titans. The Aztecs are on the road tomorrow night when they take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage begins right here at 5:30. John and Rich will have the kickoff around 7:30. Macy's Backstage is a whole department inside your Macy's store where you can find the latest fall looks, all for under $30. With new arrivals every day, you'll never know what amazing deals you'll find. Don't wait. Find a location at macy'sbackstage.com.
Previously on Jon and Jim.
Here are their games. Golden State, Minnesota home. At Sacramento, at Portland, at Minnesota, at Memphis.
3-3.
3-3. I was going to ask you, what do you think the record's going to be after 6 games without LeBron?
3-3.
Couple games against Minnesota.
I could see 4-2. That'd be a great start for the Lakers. Right. Especially without LeBron. That's why you got Luka.
Now, live from the San Diego Sports 760 studios, it's Jon and Jim.
All right, hour 3 on Jon and Jim. Stay tuned because we have some more tickets to give away later this hour to Hallow Scream here in San Diego. So make sure you're listening for that. But right now, we're joined by Kyle Glazer of Friar Territory on YouTube. Sorry, he's also a part of Foul Territory, but Friar Territory on YouTube. We're going to talk about the Padres' end of season, what they need to do. Also, get a little into the postseason action as well. But first up, Kyle, how you doing? Thanks for joining me, and appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always happy to join you.
So Padres season ended a week ago. Everything that we all were worried about in the regular season came back to haunt them in the postseason. And I feel like that's where we need to start with the changes that need to happen next year. It feels like it's pretty clear on the field. We'll get to AJ Preller in a minute here, but on the field, their offense came back to really, really bite them in the butt.
Absolutely. Look, the last 10 World Series champions all finished in the top 10 in the majors in runs scored. The last 5 World Series champions were all top 5 in the majors in home runs. The Padres were 18th in runs scored and 28th in home runs this year. The reality is, in order to be a true World Series contender, you have to be top 10 in runs scored, and you've got to be top 5 in home runs. The Padres have a long way to go to get there, and their number one focus this offseason needs to be rejiggering their offense to bring significantly more thump and just be a more dangerous offense top to bottom.
So, like, how? I mean, it's like an easy question to ask, but it's also such a difficult one to answer because I don't envision them going out. And I mean, Kyle Schwarber feels like the easy solution for a lot of teams, right? Kyle Schwarber, 50 plus bombs, the power bat that you need, but it's not as simple as that. Like, how do they get an offense that generates more home runs, more power, more runs scored if they're not going to go out and sign a Pete Alonso or a Kyle Schwarber?
Well, the first step is you have to allocate all of your financial resources in a way that you can put enough money toward pursuing multiple offensive upgrades. The Padres have a lot of players that they do arbitration raises. They have a lot of players with mutual options or club options, potential free agents that, the reality is if they let most of them go, which is going to be the right move, they really need to focus on, okay, let's bring back the guys who can hit. That means picking up Ramon Laureano's team option. That means looking to re-sign Ryan O'Hearn. It's really about prioritizing bats and free agency. The Padres are going to have some money to play with. They could also get creative in trades, which we know, but it really just comes down to how they choose to allocate the resources. If they go sign another free agent pitcher for a lot of money, you'll know they didn't allocate the resources properly or correctly.
Kyle Glazer joining me here on Jon and Jim. How would you describe Fernando Tatis Jr.'s season in a whole?
Yeah, look, it was a very, very inconsistent season offensively. I think he deserves a lot of credit for never taking his offensive struggles back to the field with him. He was incredible defensively the entire year. Look, it's no secret. You could see it in the body language, his demeanor. There was a lot of frustration, a lot of just not being in a good headspace this year. And I think that's the number one thing from the Padres perspective that you want to see worked on. Again, whatever was going on, whether it was strictly on the field, whether it was his personal life, just as a human being, you want him to be in a better headspace. But the best version of Fernando Tatis Jr., productivity-wise, and for the Padres, is the bouncy, happy, energetic, big, smiling Fernando Tatis Jr. And we just did not see that version of that player this year at all.
Because you feel like, Kyle Glazer joining us here on Jon and Jim. You feel like Fernando, if he did hit 35 to 40 bombs, like that's part of the solution that they have in-house right there for their power problems. Like it feels like a lot of their power issues this year, whether it's fair or it's unfair, it felt like it fell on the shoulders of Fernando because he went through like a 3-month stretch where he just could not hit the ball over the fence. And now he did hit 7 homers in the final month and a half-ish. But still, I mean, he went through like a 3 or 4 month stretch where he put up 5 home runs. And I feel like, the power issues with this team, like I said, either it's fair or unfair, feels like you could point directly kind of at Toddy.
Look, if you are dependent on 1 or 2 players to carry your offense, you do not have a good offense. You need to be dangerous 1 to 9. It can't all be on one player. And look, I think some of this is there probably needs to be a modification of expectations. Fernando Tatis Jr., since he missing the 2022 season, having 2 wrist surgeries, a shoulder surgery, and a PED suspension, he's hit 25 homers, 21 homers, 25 homers. The 40 home run threat has not been here the last 3 seasons. I think if he can get back to that, great, but the expectation really should be more in line with what he's done the last 3 years rather than expecting him to be a 40 home run type of hitter. Again, that hasn't been the case since 2021.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so difficult because you've seen it one time, right? And your mind always goes back to that. And I agree, like the expectations for him probably need to change as far as his power numbers go. It's just so difficult when you've already seen that 42 home run season and that, 960 OPS, and you're like, that guy was there, but now it's different. Kyle Glazer of Friar Territory joining us here on Jon and Jim. So before any moves are made this offseason, obviously we're still waiting to hear from AJ Preller or anybody in the organization other than John Seidler. The question of will AJ get an extension or not is out there. What's your take on the extension talks with AJ Preller here? And, should he get an extension? And if the Padres were to move on from AJ, would that be a mistake for the franchise?
It is very, very, very rare to see a general manager go into a season as a lame duck with only 1 year left. Most times they're given an extension, even if it's just a 1-year extension. The Angels did that quietly with Billy Epler a few years ago. The big mystery here is we just don't know, the relationship between John Seidler and AJ Preller. Look, Peter Seidler was AJ Preller's biggest champion. And that is a big reason why AJ Preller got as long of a leash as he did through 8 seasons of no 90-win teams, getting suspended for violating MLB rules. I mean, most general managers would have been fired, but Peter Seidler was his biggest champion. And in the end, under AJ Preller, the Padres have put together back-to-back 90-win seasons. Whether John Seidler feels the same about him, we just don't know because he has not been very public. There hasn't been a lot of conversation about, what that relationship looks like. So it's going to be interesting to see. But generally speaking, you would expect that if AJ Preller does return, it's very common to see at least a 1-year extension or something like that so that he's not a lame duck GM. That is generally standard practice in MLB. Not always, but most times.
And he's already making moves. So it kind of feels a little bit like, business as usual. It's just, we haven't heard from him and there hasn't been an extension. So my guess is, or at least my hope is that this gets resolved quickly and we can figure out more and hear from them hopefully next week, because they got eliminated on Thursday here, and it's been kind of radio silent. Down at Petco Park, Kyle Glazer of Fire Territory joining us here on Jon and Jim for a couple more minutes. So getting back to on the field and the players that the Padres, need to bring back, or at least should bring back, of their free agents, the guys that, the Arises, the Cease, the King. I mean, you can throw in Iglesias, but it's not really that big of a priority, in my opinion. You feel like the player that they should try their hardest to bring back is Michael King, right?
So it's interesting. I actually think the first thing they do is they pick up Ramon Laureano's club option, no questions asked. Mm-hmm. I also think bringing Ryan O'Hearn back would be smart. Depends a little bit on the price point. Again, they really need to focus all of their available resources on the offense. Regarding Michael King, look, he's going to opt out. He's going to make a lot more in free agency than, the $15 million he'd make with the Padres this year if he, accepted that. It's tough because on the one hand, he's a great pitcher who absolutely helps the Padres, but he's going to get paid and paid a lot. We're talking 6 years, 150, maybe even 175. I mean, pitchers who pitch at the level he has pitched at the last 2 years when healthy, that price point is typically $180 to $220 million contracts. He's not going to get quite that, but it's going to be a lot. And given the Padres' offensive struggles, given the long-term payroll issues they have, you don't know if signing Michael King to 6 years, $175 million is the right thing for the franchise, as great of a pitcher as he is.
So where do they go with their starting rotation? Because, I agree, the offense needs a little bit of an overhaul to an extent. You need to be better offensively, but still, next year the rotation is Nick Pivetta, Joe Musgrove coming off of Tommy John, Randy Vasquez, JP Sears. I don't know who else. Maybe Yu Darvish if he doesn't retire. That, I don't think that's good enough. So where do they go for the pitching side here if Michael King's price points out of their range and Dylan Cease's price points out of their range as well?
This is the one thing you feel good about in regards to the Padres. They have done a tremendous job finding low-cost pitchers and helping them take the next step. You look at what they did with Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha. Let's not forget Nick Martinez and Robert Suarez coming out of Japan were not big-time guys at all. This is an organization that has done a really, really good job evaluating pitchers at the major league level, correctly assessing that they have more in the tank, acquiring them and helping them reach their potential. Again, we talk about the guys I mentioned. The other guys I'm about to mention cost a little more, but Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta, taking the leap from talented but inconsistent starters to true frontline rotation types. There's just been so many guys that the Padres have been able to take from middling to great, or not really guys on people's radars to, hey, this is a really quality starter. So whoever the Padres find in free agency, you can bet they're going to do a good job and unearth some guys that they can probably get on the cheap and turn them into effective starters, just because they have such a great track record of doing it.
Moving over to the baseball postseason right now. Last night was just the most insane ending that you'll ever see. And Dodgers are now moving on to the NLCS. Does it feel like once again, this is the Dodgers to lose? Like the Dodgers, if they win a World Series, no surprise again here?
Well, I was on record as saying I thought whoever won the Phillies-Dodgers NLDS would win the World Series. So I think that kind of does lock me into the Dodgers here. Their starting pitching has been absolutely fantastic. What they can roll out there now with Ohtani and Yamamoto and Snell and Glasnow, what Roki Sasaki has done to stabilize the bullpen, that's a very, very, very scary pitching staff, at the front and at the back. They have to figure out some things in the middle, but you could take that pitching staff with the offense they have. Yeah, I think they have to be the favorite at this point. They're a way better team than both the Cubs and the Brewers, so I expect them to reach the World Series regardless of who they play in the NLCS. And then once they get there, it's just a matter of, Seattle, Toronto, who's hot, who's rolling well, and we'll go from there. But I do think at this point, the Dodgers are the favorite now that they've eliminated the Phillies.
Is there any team remaining that you think could give them a fight here?
The Mariners, if their starting pitching is healthy all the way through, they can match up really well with the Dodgers. I mean, they can roll out Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert. And the big thing is if Brian Wu comes back from his pectoral injury, then the Mariners are a team who can match the Dodgers arm for arm in the rotation. They have a better bullpen, and they have a very, very talented lineup that when their guys are going can mash with anyone. So that's the one team I think matches up well with the Dodgers, but they've got to get there first. And that starts with Game 5 tonight against the Tigers and trying to take down Tarek Skubal, which is never easy.
No, it is not. Game 5 in Seattle. We're about 52 minutes away from that one. Winner moves on to the ALCS to face the Toronto Blue Jays. Kyle, enjoy the games tonight. Enjoy the rest of the postseason, and we'll catch up with you down the road this offseason. All right, man?
Thanks. Appreciate it. Happy to join you anytime.
All right, there's Kyle Glazer there of Friar Territory. All right, coming up next. Actually, you know what? I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here. Caller number 7 right now. Caller number 7, 877-767-4760. Caller number 7, 877-767-4760. You will win a pair of tickets to Hallow Scream at SeaWorld San Diego. This year's new Horrors Awaken with 500 haunted houses, 8 terrifying scare zones, hidden speakeasies, and thrills of coasters after dark. Select nights now through November 1st. You can get tickets now at SeaWorld.com. But caller number 7 right now, 877-767-4760. You have won a pair of tickets to Hallow Scream at SeaWorld San Diego. More Jon and Jim coming up next right here on San Diego Sports 716 live on the iHeartRadio app. right, San Diego Sports 760 congratulates all our $5,000 winners and iHeartRadio's Thank a Teacher powered by Donors Choose. There's still time for you to nominate a public school teacher making a difference, and maybe they'll be one of our next winners of $5,000 winners to make over their classrooms. Help us say thank you to the educators shaping our future. Nominate your favorite teacher now at iHeartRadio.com/teachers. So again, we are about 45-ish minutes away from Game 5 in Seattle. Can't wait for that one. And then tomorrow night, we have Cubs and Brewers Game 5. Brent, you were telling me during the break. So Brent, obviously big Cubbies fan, and you did not watch the game last night.
Not live, no.
How did you watch this? Tell our listeners how you watched last night's game, Cubs and Brewers.
The game started at 6:08. I didn't get out of here until about 6:15.
Okay.
And I had to go to the store and get dinner and some stuff for the dog and everything afterwards.
Got it.
So they were already up. Ian Happ hit the home run when I was like in the aisle buying cereal or whatever. And
did you stay in the aisle for the rest of the game? Because that's
no,
what you got.
I'm lucky I didn't stay at Walmart for 4 hours the way I was going with my superstitions. But they scored. So I was worried that if I got home and turned it on with them being up 3-0, that they would blow it. Because that's what happened in the previous game. Yes. They jumped well, both games, they jumped on in the first inning and then they blew it. So I was like, no, I'm going to wait. And I kept waiting and see if they'd tie it or something would happen. And it just stayed 3-0. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep monitoring on my phone. I'm not going to actually turn it on. And I was like, I'll watch Peacemaker, and I just keep turning it on. And it's like, at one point I was like, okay, it's the ninth. I'll turn it on for the last 3 outs. And then when it got to that point, I was like, no, don't do it. I was like, because if you do it, they're going to start to come back, because that's just the type of luck you have. So I ended up watching the game on replay afterwards.
So you didn't watch a single pitch
live
of last night's game live?
No. It got in my head so much that I was just like, no. I was like, I can't do it. The same thing happens sometimes when I'm watching Packer games. If they're playing poorly, I'm like, oh, I'm going to turn it on and watch them get their butts kicked. As soon as I turn it on, they'll turn it around. So I was just worried with what happened earlier in the season. So, or not season, but earlier in the series. So
do you do that with Bears games?
Sometimes.
I respect it. Like, I respect it, because I am too a superstitious person. That the other night, I guess I could say the other night, last Thursday Night Football, Niners and Rams. I was cooking dinner and I was talking to Aaron, and the game was muted. And I go around the corner because my kitchen, I can't see a TV from my kitchen. And I saw that they were doing well. And I was like, I got to keep this game on mute. Like, I got to keep the game on mute. Aaron tries to turn the volume up, like, no, you got to keep the game on mute. They're doing well. And she was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. I watched the entire second half of the NFC Championship game 2 years ago between the Niners and the Lions on mute, because that's when the Niners came back and they beat the Lions to move to go to the Super Bowl. I watched that entire second half on mute. I was sitting on my couch a certain way the entire second half, and I had Aaron outside for the entire second half, because she was outside to start the second half on her phone with her mom. And that's when the Niners started doing better. And so I was like, no, you got to stay outside. Now, she was a good sport about it. She understood. But still, telling that to anybody else, they will think I'm crazy, which I feel like you kind of understand, Brent.
Yeah, like, I won't purposely wear, like, if I wear, a shirt, I won't wear the same shirt that I wore yesterday.
If they lost.
Like if they win. But like if the Bears win and like it just happens to be 2 weeks in a row, just by coincidence that I wore the same shirt and I notice that they've won, then I'll wear it.
Yeah.
Like the following Sunday until they lose. I've done it before with things where, like, if back before I grew my like beard out and stuff, when I shaved on the regular, if I shaved and they won, I would have to shave every single game day.
I get that.
It's same way, vice versa.
Yep,
if
I
I
get
did
it.
shave and they won or they played well, then I wouldn't shave until they lost.
I get it. I 100% get it. I've done all of it. I have gotten the same food at the same restaurant the same day if the team's on a winning streak, or if they won the previous playoff game. Right. I've watched the game on mute if they're doing better. I've been in, I've stayed in one spot on my couch if they were doing better because of it. Like, wore the same clothes. Like, yeah, I'm a very superstitious person. I don't really believe in jinxes that much, but I am very superstitious.
I don't believe in jinxes, but I believe in bad luck. And the Cubs have so much of it in our history that is like, I'm not going to tempt fate and I'm just going to let it go. Like I told you, earlier, if it would have been the deal where I got home and it was 0-0, I would have turned the game on. But I just felt like they had a 3-0 lead without me watching. So I didn't want to turn it on and then have, so I just.
Now, have they won any game in the DS while you were at work? Or
the Padres game. Padres games.
No, I don't mean
DS.
Yeah, DS. I don't think so. But I think all those games have been like outside of the show or not. I don't fully remember.
One of them was. Yeah, not yesterday's game because that was the night game, but the day before they played the day.
That's right, and they won.
Here,
They won that game. I remember because you were very relieved after the final out. Okay, because I was going to say, like, if they've lost every game that you've watched them at work, that might be a little bit of a problem. But they haven't, so that's fine.
Yeah, they won the other day, and
so
I'll be here for Aztecs tomorrow.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So, all right. So we're good. We are good there. I do want to see the Cubs win because I do think, just from like a watching standpoint, Cubs Dodgers, that's going to draw. That's a big draw right there. And Wrigley Field in October, it's fun to watch games at Wrigley Field in October. And the last time the Cubs went to the World Series and they won it, they beat the Dodgers in the NLCS. So
I'm just worried they're not going to have much left.
I know that's the problem. If Cade Horton's not available,
they barely got enough left to get through this series.
Yeah. And the Dodgers are like fully rested, ready to go. Ohtani game 1, Snell game 2, Yamamoto game 3, Glasnow game 4. That's going to be a problem. All right, coming up next. If you missed it yesterday, we're bringing it back again. Greg Camarillo, our NFL insider, he's going to join us, and you're going to hear that conversation to get you ready for an NFL Week 6 this weekend. Stay with us right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Game 5 of the ALDS between the Tigers and Mariners is set to get underway in about 40 minutes at 5:08. It's going to be Tariq Skubal going for the Tigers and George Kirby going for the M's. The winner will go on to face the Blue Jays for the right to go to the World Series. Game 5 of the NLDS between the Brewers and Cubs is set for tomorrow night at 5:08, and neither team has announced a starting pitcher as of right now. In NFL news, the Ravens will be without Lamar Jackson this weekend when they take on the Rams. The Raiders will be without tight end Brock Bowers when they take on the Titans. And Jim, Mac Jones is going to start again this weekend for the 49ers when they take on Tampa Bay. The Aztecs are on the road tomorrow night when they take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage starts right here at 5:30 with Fletch and JR. John and Rich will have the kick around 7:30. Member week is here at Lowe's. My Lowe's Rewards members get up to 40% off hundreds of items plus free standard shipping. Join for free today. Free standard shipping not available in Alaska and Hawaii. Exclusions and more terms and conditions apply. Details at lowes.com/terms, subject to change.
All right, back here on Jon and Jim, about 30 minutes away from first pitch in Seattle, Game 5. Mariners and Tigers will react to that game once it gets underway. But right now, you missed our conversation yesterday with our NFL insider, Greg Camarillo. Here's our conversation talking about this weekend's NFL Week 6 matchups.
The NFL Insider on San Diego Sports 760 is brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players' Place.
All right, hour 3, Jon and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Always great to connect with Greg Camarillo, who was a former NFL wide receiver. You can catch him every Sunday night, football night in San Diego with Darnay Tripp, Richard Ornberger.
Is the Jaguars win on Monday night over the Chiefs enough for you to put them in the like, hey, this team's legit category?
Yes, but it's more for me, the Chiefs are still struggling category.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have seen the Chris Jones play at the end of the game when that was a problem. And that was, to me, now this is a veteran player. He knows that he needs to do better. It's not knocking him. It's pointing out, I think they've just gotten a little too lax. They've won a bunch of Super Bowls. They're in the playoffs every year. They know come January, we can turn it on. And I'm sure Chris Jones can turn it on in January. But it just, to me, points out that there's just really no urgency. This is literally like the last play of the game. If you tackle the guy, the clock probably runs out and they get a victory, and you've got one of your veteran players kind of standing around watching. It's just they need that urgency. They need that fire that you kind of get when you're hungry, and they have been eating well for years, so they're not as hungry as other teams. But maybe that fire and being called out will turn that on for them. But for me, it's more of a concern of where the Chiefs are than the Jaguars being that amazing.
Well, let's continue that conversation. Greg Camarillo is with us, played receiver in the NFL. You can catch him on football night in San Diego on Sunday nights after actually Lions and Chiefs. So the Chiefs get the Lions at home. There's something like a 1 or 1.5 point favorite. How intrigued are you by this matchup, and what are your expectations here?
Oh, I love it. And especially coming on after Sunday Night Football, we want a good game to be played so the viewers stay tuned in. I like the Lions more than I like the Chiefs right now. And the Lions light up the scoreboard. They've got a few holes on defense, but I have more faith in their game and their sense of urgency. And like I mentioned, when you win a Super Bowl, they talk about the Super Bowl hangover. I've never won a Super Bowl, so I don't know what that feels like, but you see it from the Chiefs. They know they just cruise into the playoffs every year, where the Lions get close and can't quite get there to that championship. And so that fuels their fire. And I see that more from their team. Dan Campbell, the man that said they're going to be biting kneecaps on their way up from the ground, like that mentality is what's allowing them to flourish better this early in the season. And so this is a big test, a fun test. But in my mind, the Lions would be the favorites. And I know it's at Kansas City. And so the Chiefs are hard to play there, but the Lions right now are the better football team.
So there's been this, thing that's going on in the NFL where players like to drop the football before crossing the goal line. It's a problem, right? It's happening, week after week, and you're like, what the heck's going on here? But I want to talk about the incident that happened on the sideline with Jonathan Gannon and Amari DeMarcado, and Jonathan Gannon getting in his face, but, more importantly, putting his hands on him. If you were in that situation as a former NFL player, what would your mindset be there if a coach ever put his hands on you? And what's your take on that?
Oh, that's a tough one. That crosses a border. You are asking NFL players to basically go to war between the whistles. You are going face to face with another gigantic strong man and you're battling. But as soon as that whistle stops, you have to stop. And we rag on players for, penalties for fighting afterwards. You get ejected for throwing a punch. So we need to expect the same, if not more, from coaches. You are the leader of a team. There has to be a boundary somewhere where what's right and what's not right. And it's really hard. Like that is a tough thing to do. Everyone is playing with full passion, full emotion. They've prepared all week, maybe even their whole lives for that type of moment, but you got to shut it off. And so, we expect that from players, and we got to expect the same from coaches. And, the NFL threw a fine that way. I think it was $100,000. And so that'll teach you a quick lesson.
Yeah, Will.
It sure will. Greg Camarillo is with us right now. Again, the former NFL wide receiver. Is there any coming back from this for Baltimore, specifically on defense, where they're now pacing to allow the most points in a season in NFL history? Think about that. The Baltimore Ravens are on pace to allow the most points ever surrendered in a season in NFL history. They're 31st in yards allowed. They're 29th in run defense. They're 31st in pass defense. Now they're in a soft division. Is this recoverable from, so to speak?
No, I don't think so. I held out hope. I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. Yep. I held out hope through the first several weeks as they're just playing. They're playing tough teams. They played the Bills. They played the Lions. They played the Chiefs. They're going to recover from this. And then you look at their schedule and they got the Texans. They'll be fine. And then they lose Lamar Jackson. And you see why he was an MVP when he's not on the field. And I know that doesn't explain the defensive side of things. But the drop off of their team without Lamar Jackson was night and day. They looked terrible. They looked like they couldn't move the ball. Looked like they had no hope. And that impacts the defense. When your offense can't go out there and score, you have a little bit less belief, that if you go make a play, the difference is made and you could win the game. But no, I don't think it's recoverable. Unfortunately, I think this is just going to be a rough year for the Ravens. And they're going to take a look in the mirror and try to figure out where they went wrong and come back because, Derrick Henry is towards the latter years of his career. And Lamar Jackson can still play when he's healthy. So they still got a window to go make things happen. But I don't think this year is the year.
You guys followed this game on, football night in San Diego last Sunday, Patriots, Bills. That was kind of like a coming out party a little bit for Drake May and maybe the Patriots as well. Any stock into the Patriots in the AFC making a run for the postseason potentially? Or do you think that was just maybe a one-off that they won that game on the road at Buffalo?
Yeah, it's before that game, I would have said absolutely not. After that game, I'm questioning it a little bit. The Patriots could make a little bit of a run. Anytime you've got the Jets and Dolphins in your division, you're almost automatically going to be top two because of that, which is tough to say about my former team.
Yeah.
It's division games. You get more hype for them. A guy like Stephon Diggs going back to his former team, you get more hype for that. That was some of the most fun games I ever had is playing against my former team. And so I don't want to say it's a one-off because they're a decent team, but I don't think this immediately puts them in a ranking above the Bills. They're not suddenly better than the Bills.
No.
And so, it just shows what a receiver like Stephon Diggs can do for a quarterback. And Drake May is a decent quarterback, and Stephon Diggs elevated him to the next level, kind of like what we saw in Buffalo. Josh Allen, a good quarterback, when he had Stephon Diggs, elevated to the next level. Now, Josh Allen has stayed at the next level. but I don't think the Patriots are suddenly a contender for a Super Bowl. They're a solid team that can give people headaches, but I don't expect to see them playing in February.
Greg Camarillo with us right now, and again, spent a good amount of time playing for the Dolphins. Let's talk about the Dolphins' opponent, the Chargers, this weekend, right? Chargers are going to be in Miami. It feels like an important spot for the Chargers, does it not? They started 3-0. They're now 3-2. They're only a 3.5-point road favorite. How important is this weekend for the Chargers making the cross-country trip again?
It's important, and it's sad what's happened to the Chargers, and it's not anything to me that you can really just go fix. It's not a strategy change. It's not you trade for one player and you figure that out. They're just devastated at offensive line. They lost an all-pro left tackle early in the season, gone for the season. Joe Alt got hurt. Becton had concussion issues. I think Pipkins got hurt last game. They're literally playing with a second O-line and maybe even a third stringer in there. And this is why quarterbacks in the preseason, we watch them like Shedeur Sanders and we're like, oh man, this guy's going to be great. And he's running for his life or his numbers are terrible because you're playing with backup O-linemen. And that's exactly what we're seeing from the Chargers. It looks like preseason play. Herbert is getting smacked. He's still playing well, but he's taking way too many hits. One will eventually lead to Herbert getting hurt. And so for them to be on the same level as the Miami Dolphins, who also look terrible this year, is concerning. And so, I don't look at it like this is a must-win game because to them, they just need to get healthy, which appears to be too tall of a task. But Herbert is doing his best, and he's slinging that ball around, and he's fun to watch, but he can't keep taking a beating like that.
Final one for me, Greg, as we head into week 6 tonight and this weekend. It's hard to say that Baker Mayfield isn't in the early lead for MVP of the league. I mean, without him, Bucks are not where they are at, obviously. And he's playing at a different level right now, feels like.
Yeah, I love the fact that he's in the MVP race just because he's fun to watch. He plays with the pizzazz, with the energy, especially with it's all fourth quarter comebacks.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of, and we'll take this all the way back to San Diego, a team I was on in 2006, the San Diego Chargers. We were 14-2. No matter what happened in a game that year, we had a belief that we could come back and win. No matter what bad situation we're in, how much we were down, whether there was a turnover or not, the feel on the sideline, the feel on the team was we can go win. I had a coach that said winning begets winning, which means that once you figure out how to win, you know that you can keep winning. And that's exactly where the Bucks are right now. It doesn't matter what situation they're in, as long as they can get the ball with some amount of time left and 8 points or less, they're going to find a way to go win a game. And it's sustainable as long as you believe. You can, as long as you believe you can make it happen, they can go make it happen. And that's exactly where the Bucks are. And it's Baker Mayfield that's fueling all that. So I love to see a guy that was kind of written off from other teams get a chance for a resurgence in his career, and that's exactly what he's doing. And it looks like he's having fun doing it.
It's an amazing story, and he certainly made the most of it here to start 2025. Greg Camarillo, Greg, always appreciate it. Enjoy Rich and Darnay and the crew on Sunday night football night in San Diego. After that Sunday night football game, we'll do it again next week. All right.
All right. Appreciate it, fellas.
All right. Great stuff from Greg Camarillo.
All right. Coming up next, we'll preview game 5s in the NLDS and ALDS. Also, we'll get ready for NFL Week 6 this weekend. A couple of matchups that I want to get into. Also, we got to revisit last night's crazy sports night around baseball, football, everything. It was just a wild night. So all of that coming up next right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 716 live on the iHeartRadio app. As you look at that, Dan Patrick, if you heard that promo there, talking a little Padres baseball on the national level. And that was obviously from last week when the Padres got eliminated, but same sentiment. Toddy, MIA, Machado, what the hell? The team went all in, and they got nothing to show for it. So, yay. They actually do have one thing to show for it. They got one thing, and we'll talk about that later next hour. We already talked about it in the show today, but we're going to talk a little more about it coming up here in the 5 o'clock hour. So, yeah, we're getting ready for Game 5 in the ALDS. We're about 15 minutes away. Tariq Skubal, it's going to be a tough one for the Mariners. The more I think about it, like beating Skubal twice, like, I don't know. Good luck. Good luck. But I'm hoping the Mariners win because Seattle will be rocking tonight. That stadium is going to be electric, especially if the Mariners can put a couple runs on the board early there. So can't wait to watch that one. So this weekend, week 6 in the NFL. And I'm trying to find like the big time matchup. You could say it's Sunday Night Football, Lions, Chiefs. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But listen to these matchups here, Brent, and tell me if anything jumps off the page other than like, your favorite team, the Bears, or my team, the 49ers, right? Niners, Bucks. Interesting. Lot of injuries in that game. Buccaneers are going to be without Bucky Irvin, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin. They're all out. And they're dealing with other injuries as well. Niners, we know, no Brock Purdy, no Ricky Pearsall. Bosa's out for the year. Brandon Ayuk's obviously not ready to go. Same thing with George Kittle. Broncos, Jets.
Yeah.
See an upset there in New York? Probably not. Jets, 0-5 on the year. Woof. Browns, Steelers?
No.
Chargers, Dolphins in Miami?
No.
Patriots, Saints in New Orleans?
Nobody in Saints is going to be in that answer this year.
No Lamar Jackson, so Rams, Ravens? Cardinals with maybe no Kyler Murray, Colts?
No, there's only a couple.
Seahawks, Jaguars could be a sneaky good game.
Yeah, that might be okay.
Seahawks, I think, are better than their 3-2 record. And Jaguars are 4-1, so the record is what their record is. And that could be a good game. I'm rooting for the Jaguars in that one for division purposes. Cowboys, Panthers?
No.
Titans, Raiders?
No.
Joe Flacco and the Bengals and the Packers?
That one's just kind of interesting because who was the quarterback of the Browns when they came back and beat the Packers a couple weeks ago? Joe Flacco. So he could beat Green Bay twice in 1 year with two different teams.
He's facing the Packers for the second time this season.
Yeah,
wow.
so that game's kind of interesting just for that reason.
Okay.
But other than that, that's the only interesting thing about that is he could beat the same team twice in a season on two different teams.
And it looks like Jamar Chase might be out of that game as well. He was on the injury report today for the Bengals. Lions, Chiefs, that's the game of the weekend, but it is Sunday Night Football. So that is the game of the week. Monday night, we have another doubleheader.
Yeah.
No, I know that. I'm just saying another doubleheader.
No, we're going to get these all the time now because it's part of the ESPN deal.
Bills, Falcons. Okay. Bears, Commanders could be a good one. Bears, Commanders could be maybe the second, as far as, matchups go. I'd put Seahawks, Jaguars, no particular order. Seahawks, Jaguars, Lions, Chiefs, Bears, Commanders is like the top 3 games of the weekend. Maybe Niners, Bucks, because the Bucks are always in close games and the Niners are also always in close games. And they're both 4-1, so maybe.
I would go with that. The Bears Washington game is just because for the Bears, that's their revenge game for the Hail Mary last year.
Right.
That was pretty much after that game. That was when their season pretty much went down the toilet because I don't think they won a game or I think they only won one game after the Hail Mary. So for me, that's kind of big. And, we'll have the good QB matchup there of Williams and Daniels. And, they're going to get compared for the rest of their careers just because of where they went in the draft. So
right. That's why they're on Monday Night Football. So
yeah.
That's your week 6 NFL slate. It's already week 6. What the hell? that's just like the season just started and we're already in week 6.
Add 6 more weeks.
Yeah, but still, week 6. I mean, we're in it now. We are in it now. All right, one final hour of Jon and Jim coming up next. Stay with us right here on San Diego Sports 716 live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Audible. Game 5 of the ALDS between the Tigers and Mariners is set to get underway in about 10 minutes. It's going to be Tariq Skubal going for the Tigers and George Kirby going for the Mariners. The winner will go on to face Toronto for the right to go into the World Series. Game 5 of the NLDS between the Brewers and Cubs is set for tomorrow night at 5:08. And as of right now, we still have no pitching matchups for that game. In NFL injury news, there's going to be no Lamar Jackson going for the Ravens this weekend when they take on the Rams. And same for Brock Bowers and the Raiders. He's going to miss this week against Tennessee. And the 49ers are going to go with Mac Jones again this week when they take on Tampa Bay. The Aztecs are on the road tomorrow night when they take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage with JR and Fletch starts right here at 5:30. And John and Rich will have the kickoff around 7:30. Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. Fall for a brooding Duke, dive into a steamy romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas, or find the perfect rom-com from Lily Chu. Start listening free when you sign up for a 30-day trial at audible.com.
Previously on Jon and Jim.
Here are their games: Golden State, Minnesota home, at Sacramento, at Portland, at Minnesota, at Memphis.
3-3.
3-3. I was going to ask you, what do you think the record's going to be after 6 games without LeBron?
3-3.
Couple games against Minnesota.
I could see 4-2. That'd be a great start for the Lakers, right? Especially without LeBron. That's why you got Luka.
Now, live from the San Diego Sports 760 studios, it's Jon and Jim.
All right, final hour of the week here on Jon and Jim. We're moments away from first pitch in Seattle. Mariners and Tigers, game 5 there. A lot of sports happening. A lot of sports. It's been this is why, to my point a couple days ago, I would pick October as the best sports month. I mean, last night, like, if you wanted to have a good case why October is the best sports month, I present to you last night. Right? Like, it's kind of hard to beat that. I mean, yes, we have the NCAA tournament in March. Yes, we could go with, January, maybe because of the NFL playoffs and the college football national championship game. You could pick December because you got NFL, NBA, NHL, college bowl games, along with the college football playoffs. But last night, to me, it's like the defense rests. Like that last night, kind of for me, like, hey, October is the month, man.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to pick out like the worst sports months than it is the best, because there's so many different ones to choose from. I think February is the worst. But like even December used to not be that good for me, but now with the college football playoff, it's better, because we used to have, that 3-week window between pretty much the beginning of December through New Year's Day.
Yeah.
Where we'd have to just wait and either watch, the toilet bowl or whatever teams they would trot out there before
the
New
Idaho
Year's Day.
Potato Bowl, the Cheez-Its Bowl.
Yeah, that was pre-Pop-Tarts Bowl before we
never speak bad about the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
That's what I'm saying. I wish they had the Pop-Tarts Bowl back then. I would have watched it more often.
Yeah, Pop-Tarts Bowl is elite. I don't care what anybody says. That is now a staple of the college football postseason, even though it's not a college football playoff game.
I don't care. Maybe it will be someday.
That would be amazing.
People really like sacrificing Pop-Tart mascots at the end of the game. So
yes, I want to see Pop-Tart mascots die. And I want to see teams eat Pop-Tarts.
Just rip them apart and eat them like it's a zombie movie.
Exactly.
With Pop-Tarts.
Exactly. All right, Brent, let's get to this.
It's time for the wrap.
Presented by Sombrero Mexican Food. Check out their website at sombreromex.com.
Is tonight a must-win game for the Mercury in Game 4 of the WNBA Finals? I guess we'd have to know what the season series is, or the series is first.
Well, the series is 3-0 Aces. Asia Wilson did hit a game winner in Game 3. She is, I think, I get this right, she's the league MVP again. When the Aces win, she will win the WNBA Finals MVP. So considering the Mercury are trailing in this series 3-0, you're probably going to need to win tonight. And that's how much time I'll be spending on the WNBA finals. But hey, Asia Wilson, great player. Aces, they're a great team. So my pick is the Aces tonight. Mercury, they're going to get swept.
And the only thing I know about the series is I saw on Facebook or something the other day that I guess Asia Wilson hit a game-winning shot.
Yep, game 3.
But it was the first game-winning shot because she hit it over a married couple. Because there's teammates on the other team.
Oh, really? They're married? I didn't know
they're
that.
married to each other. And they were both guarding her when she shot it. So they said it's the first time in sports history that someone's hit a game winner over a married couple. And that's the only thing I know about the series.
That's all I know, too. I just know there's also been like a lot of injuries, too. A lot of injuries. But Asia Wilson, she is a star. She will win another WNBA Finals MVP to put on her mantle along with all of her other MVP awards as well. Next question, Brent.
Who's going to win tonight's game 5, Mariners or the Tigers?
So we are moments away from first pitch in Seattle. The scene there, I'm sure, is electric. I see smoke going up right now on the television. Like I said earlier in the show, it's hard to pick against Tariq Skubal for a second time. And not only is it hard to pick against him, it's hard to beat him a second time in a series. George Kirby on the mound for the Mariners. I want the Mariners. Like my heart tells me Mariners, but my head tells me Tigers tonight. So I'm going to take Tigers in a close one tonight to move on to the ALCS against the Toronto Blue Jays.
I think the Mariners are going to win. Home field's going to do it.
I hope so. I hope I'm wrong because I want to see the Mariners move to the ALCS, which would be an incredible story because they haven't been to the ALCS in what, 35 years?
That year when Griffey and them played the Yankees.
That was in the mid 90s. So like, yeah. I mean, we're looking at 25 years ish. No.
I was obsessed
30
with that
years.
Mariners team.
That Mariners team was awesome.
Griffey, like, he's my favorite non-Cub of like all time. But like Jade Buhner and Edgar Martinez,
Randy Johnson was on that team, right? Oh my gosh, that team was
A-Rod, even though he didn't play, he just rode the pine the whole time.
Still, that team was great, and that was the last time I think, pretty sure that the Mariners were in the ALCS. All right, next question, Brent.
Is last night's ending to the Phillies-Dodgers game the worst ending to a playoff game you've ever seen?
Initial in the moment is yes, but the more you think about it, I bet you could find ones that are equally as painful or maybe even worse. And I'm talking across all sports, by the way. Like in baseball, by the way, I saw this note. I said it earlier in the show that last night was the first time in a playoff series. It was the first time in a postseason series to end with a walk-off error. And Jason Stark tweeted that out last night. He actually was wrong. And that's surprising because Jason Stark is pretty nails when it comes to baseball history. I guess it happened another time in 2016 when the Blue Jays defeated the Rangers when Josh Donaldson scored following an error by Rugnid Odor. So it's happened twice. So with it happening twice, it's hard for me to say that's the worst ending to a postseason series in the history of sports. Now, if that was the only time it ever happened, you'd have to put that in consideration, but it wasn't now. I mean, there's others like the Immaculate Catch game. I mean,
reception,
Immaculate Reception or whatever it was called. I forget. Steelers, Raiders, Holy Roller in a playoff game?
I think so.
I mean, that's a pretty brutal way to end the game.
What was it? What did J.R. Smith do that one? Remember that one year he did something stupid?
Oh, yeah.
And yelled at him because it cost him the game.
That didn't end the game, but it ultimately cost him the game. Warriors were at the line, shooting 2 free throws to go up ahead in the game with a couple seconds left, like 8 or 9 seconds. And I forget who was at the free throw line, but made the first, missed the second. J.R. Smith rebounded the ball, and instead of going back up with it, he dribbled the ball out to like mid-court and just like held it. And LeBron's like, what are you doing? That's a bad one.
I have one. Chris Webber.
Oh,
in
the timeouts?
finals. Yeah.
Yes. That's pretty bad.
Because that was self-inflicted, just like the Phillies was last night. It wasn't, granted, not just one, but, they won on the air. So it was self-inflicted. So I'd say Chris Webber.
I don't know why I keep thinking of this one, but Saints-Rams, you remember this game? It was the NFC Championship game. It was at the Superdome.
Pass interference game?
Yeah. And that cost the Saints, a chance to win that game and go to the Super Bowl.
The only thing is that was on the refs. That wasn't necessarily on the teams.
Right.
So it's beyond their control.
Okay, so I think we've determined last night's game, while it was one of the worst endings you'll see to a postseason series and postseason game, probably premature and too in the moment to say that it's the worst ending you've ever seen. I think we've come to that conclusion, but it still was awful. Oh my God, it was bad. Final question, Brett.
When will we hear from AJ Preller?
My guess is either Monday or Tuesday, because those are the days that I'll be gone. And those are the days. So John will be here Monday. I'll be gone Monday. John and myself will both be gone Tuesday. So you get a little J Riff action on Tuesday afternoon, J Riff and Brent. And then John's gone the rest of next week, and I'm here Monday through Friday. So my guess is like Monday, right? But even if it's Monday, there still will be plenty to talk about for the rest of the week. Exactly. So I'm going to guess Monday or Tuesday. That's what I got right now. Still haven't heard from AJ, and he won't speak during the weekend. So last year, as you heard earlier today, Darnay Tripp mentioned that he looked it up. Good on him. It was 10 days last year before AJ spoke to the media. And if he speaks on Monday, then it will be 7, 8. I guess it will be 10 days, but he'll speak on the 11th day. If my math is right, which it never is. So yesterday was a week. Today is 8 days. Tomorrow's 9 days. Sunday's 10 days. Mondays would be 11. If he speaks on Monday. If he speaks on Tuesday, then we're pushing it a little bit here. Pushing it a little bit here. But my guess is he'll speak next week. He's got it, right? He's got to speak next week. They got to figure out this contract situation. And whenever that's figured out, he'll speak. All right. Coming up next, if you missed it earlier in the show, Kyle Glazer, he joined us. You're going to hear that conversation. Also, we'll update you on the Mariners and Tigers Game 5 in Seattle. Stay with us right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. Hey guys, it's Jim from Jon and Jim for Jamul Casino, the Players Place. The next level of luxury has arrived. Treat yourself to a stunning new stay, rooftop relaxation, indulgent spa treatments, and all the thrills of Jamul Casino Resort, now all in one unforgettable destination. You can savor San Diego's ultimate endless dining experience at Jamul 23, from their world-famous lobster brunch served every morning to the luxurious VIP endless dining experience each evening. You can indulge in chef-curated specialties, fresh seafood, prime cuts, and decadent desserts, all with stunning panoramic views. Also, it's San Diego's Best of 2025. They won the San Diego Award for their best rooftop bars, incredible team members, and more. So check them out today at the all-new Jamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. All right, back here on Jon and Jim. We're underway in Seattle. It's scoreless. The bottom of the first inning there. Tariq Skubal on the mound for the Tigers. I wonder how it's going in Philadelphia right now. Now, it's 8 o'clock in Philadelphia. So my guess is the local shows for the day, or I don't even know that their schedule is, but all like the prime time shows are done, right? Morning drive, afternoon drive, midday. Like, I wonder how their days went.
I don't know. Let's check in on Philly radio. Not good.
No, not good at all. Not good at all. Man, I some days in sports talk radio can feel very, very long. Like very long, right? Now, for the listener out there, it doesn't affect you. Like, it doesn't affect you at all. But for us, right, there's some days it can feel long, right? Especially with a 4-hour show. It can feel like a long day. Like, what do we got to talk about? Right? Like, let's start working, boys. Let's start working here. I'm going to guess that today might have been one of the easiest sports talk radio days in Philadelphia sports history. Like, I'm dead serious. I think this might have been, and there's other days, like when you win the Super Bowl, when the Eagles win the Super Bowl, it's like you just celebrate. Or if the Eagles lose in the Super Bowl, then the next day, well, it's an easy day, because there's one topic, right? But today, I mean, you could go in any direction if you wanted. Like, if you wanted to devote a segment to the Flyers, which I'm guessing they didn't, but if you wanted to, I mean, you could rage about that. I mean, there was plenty to rage about today in Philadelphia. You wanted to rage about the Flyers? Go for it. You wanted to rage about the Eagles? Yup. Wanted to rage about the Phillies? Yup. Like, has anybody checked in on Joel Embiid? Like, I'm a little worried that he may have accidentally stepped on a stair wrong and sprained his ankle last night. Like, I mean, it's all gone bad for Philadelphia sports. So has anybody checked up on the Sixers lately? Like, is Paul George okay? Is Joel Embiid okay? Did he practice yesterday or something? And did he come out of it healthy? Because everything went wrong for Philadelphia sports last night. Everything. It was an all-timer to the point where it's like, WIP, the radio station in Philadelphia, people in California. I saw Colin tweeting about it last night saying like, hey, can I take the day off tomorrow so I can just listen to WIP in the morning? That's how it was. And, being in sports talk radio myself, it's one of those things where I know exactly how it feels. Because we've had those days in San Diego. Maybe not to that extent, but hey, after the Padres lose Game 5 to the Dodgers in the NLDS last year, the following day on the radio, yeah, it's DEFCON 1. It's not the same level because you're not dealing with the Eagles and the Phillies losing on the same night. It's not like there's an NFL team in town anymore that we care about. So it's not like, hey, Chargers lost on the same night that the Padres lost to the Dodgers in the playoffs. No, that didn't happen, nor will it ever happen. But still, it's one of those days where you wake up and if you're a sports talk radio host, man, you're like, bro, easiest day ever. Phone lines are open, right? Phone lines are open. My guess is the phone lines were lit all day long in Philadelphia. There probably was not a moment where a phone line was open today. That's my guess. And I got my father-in-law telling me, like, I got to find new teams to root for. He's like, I'm done with the Eagles. I'm done with the Phillies.
Are you going to recruit him to be a Niners fan?
He'll never be a Niners fan. It won't work. Nor would he ever try to recruit me to become an Eagles fan. Like, I would never be an Eagles fan. Like, just like he'll never be a Niners fan. So I get it. But to expand a little bit on the Phillies, we talked all about the Padres' failures. I think you could argue right now that the Phillies, their failures might be worse than what the Padres have dealt with here. To an extent, right? Phillies, to their credit, they did make a World Series at the Padres' expense in 2022. But they lost that World Series. And ever since then, you lose in Game 7 of the NLCS the following year. Then you lose to one of your rivals, the Mets, the following season, which was last year in the NLDS. And then you lose in heartbreaking fashion in the NLDS again to the Dodgers when you were the better seed and you had home field advantage. The Padres, the last 4 years, 3 of the last 4 years have been postseason runs, but they've all ended in disappointment, especially this year and especially last year. But could you say that the Phillies' disappointment that's more disappointing than what the Padres have gone through? You make a World Series, so in that sense, it's an accomplishment, but when you get there, it's you got to win. So Phillies got World Series, NLCS Game 7 loss at home, NLDS loss to the Mets, NLDS loss to the Dodgers, and the way it ended last night. Or Padres NLCS loss in 2022, missing the postseason in 2023, NLDS loss in Game 5 on the road to the Dodgers, wild card loss to the Cubs in Game 3 on the road. Which organization has had the more disappointing last 4 years?
Well, Padres, because they didn't. At least like you said, they lost, but at least the Phillies went to the World Series.
Right. Yeah, I would probably go that direction too. Not to say that the Phillies haven't dealt with some crazy disappointment the last 4 years, but that World Series, and they beat the Padres. So, yeah, it's an interesting question. What would you rather have? Neither are good options. Neither are good options.
Philly in a way this year would be maybe a little more disappointing because they had home field. Not over Milwaukee, but over everyone but Milwaukee, and and then they ended up losing on the road.
And they lost the first 2 home games of the series as well. They had a 3-0 lead in Game 1. If you took the Phillies, I'd get it. Padres, very disappointing the last 4 years. NLCS run, missed the postseason, losing Game 5 to the Dodgers in the NLDS, losing Game 3, the wild card round to the Cubs this year. But look, if you're looking at parallels here, both franchises the last 4 years, very disappointing. So if you're looking at a team that has also dealt with some massive disappointment, high payroll, right? Superstar players not performing in the postseason. Phillies are a little bit of the mirror of the Padres to that extent when you're breaking it down like that. Look at the numbers of the Phillies superstars over the last couple of years. They've been awful, just like the Padres superstars have been awful. So I can understand. I can understand. All right, coming up next, if you missed it, Kyle Glazer joined me earlier in the show. We're going to bring back that conversation for you. Coming up next right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Game 5 of the ALDS between the Tigers and Mariners is underway. Right now, there's no score in the bottom of the second. Game 5 of the NLDS between the Cubs and the Brewers is tomorrow at 5:08. And as of right now, we still do not have any starting pitching matchups. NFL injury updates. There's going to be no Lamar Jackson for the Ravens this Saturday when they take on the Rams. Same with no Brock Bowers for the Raiders when they take on Tennessee. And Mac Jones will start again for the 49ers this weekend when they take on Tampa Bay. San Diego State is on the road tomorrow night when they take on Nevada. Our pregame coverage with JR and Fletch starts at 5:30, and John and Rich will have the kickoff a little after 7:30. Lowe's knows Sundays hit different when you earn them. So we're helping you with deals on top brands like Scott's, Pit Boss, Cobalt, and Trex Decking. So get to Lowe's, get it done, and earn your Sunday. Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
All right, back here on Jon and Jim. Still scoreless in the Tigers-Mariners game. Winner moves on to the ALCS. If you missed it earlier, Kyle Glazer, Fire Territory Podcast on YouTube. He joined us to talk about the Padres ending of their season, what they needed to do in the offseason. But we opened up the conversation with what kind of did the Padres in, which was the lack of offense.
Absolutely. Look, the last 10 World Series champions all finished in the top 10 in the majors in runs scored. The last 5 World Series champions were all top 5 in the majors in home runs. The Padres were 18th in runs scored and 28th in home runs this year. The reality is, in order to be a true World Series contender, you have to be top 10 in runs scored, and you got to be top 5 in home runs. The Padres have a long way to go to get there, and their number one focus this offseason needs to be rejiggering their offense to bring significantly more thump and just be a more dangerous offense top to bottom.
So, like, how? I mean, it's like an easy question to ask, but it's also such a difficult one to answer because I don't envision them going out. And I mean, Kyle Schwarber feels like the easy solution for a lot of teams, right? Kyle Schwarber, 50 plus bombs, the power bat that you need, but it's not as simple as that. Like, how do they get an offense that generates more home runs, more power, more runs scored if they're not going to go out and sign a Pete Alonso or a Kyle Schwarber?
Well, the first step is you have to allocate all of your financial resources in a way that you can put enough money toward pursuing multiple offensive upgrades. The Padres have a lot of players that they do arbitration raises. They have a lot of players with mutual options or club options, potential free agents that, the reality is if they let most of them go, which is going to be the right move, they really need to focus on, okay, let's bring back the guys who can hit. That means picking up Ramon Laureano's team option. That means looking to re-sign Ryan O'Hearn. It's really about prioritizing bats and free agency. The Padres are going to have some money to play with. They could also get creative in trades, which we know, but it really just comes down to how they choose to allocate the resources. If they go sign another free agent pitcher for a lot of money, you'll know they didn't allocate the resources properly or correctly.
Kyle Glazer joining me here on Jon and Jim. How would you describe Fernando Tatis Jr. season in a whole?
Yeah, look, it was a very, very inconsistent season offensively. I think he deserves a lot of credit for never taking his offensive struggles back to the field with him. He was incredible defensively the entire year. Look, it's no secret. You could see it in the body language, his demeanor. There was a lot of frustration, a lot of just not being in a good headspace this year. And I think that's the number one thing from the Padres perspective that you want to see worked on. Again, whatever was going on, whether it was strictly on the field, whether it was his personal life, just as a human being, you want him to be in a better headspace. But the best version of Fernando Tatis Jr. productivity-wise and for the Padres is the bouncy, happy, energetic, big smiling Fernando Tatis Jr. And we just did not see that version of that player this year at all.
Because you feel like, Kyle Glazer joining us here on Jon and Jim. You feel like Fernando, if he did hit 35 to 40 bombs, like that's part of the solution that they have in-house right there for their power problems. Like it feels like a lot of their power issues this year, whether it's fair or it's unfair, it felt like it fell on the shoulders of Fernando because he went through like a 3-month stretch where he just could not hit the ball over the fence. And now he did hit 7 homers in the final month and a half-ish. But still, I mean, he went through like a 3 or 4 month stretch where he put up 5 home runs. And I feel like, you know, the power issues with this team, like I said, either it's fair or unfair, feels like you could point directly kind of at Toddy.
Look, if you are dependent on 1 or 2 players to carry your offense, you do not have a good offense. You need to be dangerous 1 to 9. It can't all be on one player. And look, I think some of this is there probably needs to be a modification of expectations. You know, Fernando Tatis Jr., since he missing the 2022 season, having 2 wrist surgeries, a shoulder surgery, and a PED suspension, he's hit 25 homers, 21 homers, 25 homers. You know, the 40 home run threat has not been here the last 3 seasons. I think if he can get back to that, great, but the expectation really should be more in line with what he's done the last 3 years rather than expecting him to be a 40 home run type of hitter. Again, that hasn't been the case since 2021.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so difficult because you've seen it one time, right? And your mind always goes back to that. And I agree, like the expectations for him probably need to change as far as his power numbers go. It's just so difficult when you've already seen that 42 home run season and that, you know, 960 OPS, and you're like, that guy was there, but now it's different. Kyle Glazer of Friar Territory joining us here on Jon and Jim. So before any moves are made this offseason, obviously we're still waiting to hear from AJ Preller or anybody in the organization other than John Seidler. You know, the question of will AJ get an extension or not is out there. What's your take on the extension talks with AJ Preller here? And, you know, should he get an extension? And if the Padres were to move on from AJ, would that be a mistake for the franchise?
It is very, very, very rare to see a general manager go into a season as a lame duck with only 1 year left. Most times they're given an extension, even if it's just a 1-year extension. The Angels did that quietly with Billy Epler a few years ago. The big mystery here is we just don't know, the relationship between John Seidler and AJ Preller. Look, Peter Seidler was AJ Preller's biggest champion. And that is a big reason why AJ Preller got as long of a leash as he did through 8 seasons of no 90-win teams, getting suspended for violating MLB rules. I mean, most general managers would have been fired, but Peter Seidler was his biggest champion. And in the end, under AJ Preller, the Padres have put together back-to-back 90-win seasons. Whether John Seidler feels the same about him, we just don't know because he has not been very public. There hasn't been a lot of conversation about, you know, what that relationship looks like. So it's going to be interesting to see. But generally speaking, you would expect that if AJ Preller does return, it's very common to see at least a 1-year extension or something like that so that he's not a lame duck GM. That is generally standard practice in MLB. Not always, but most times.
And he's already making moves, so it kind of feels a little bit like, you know, business as usual. It's just, you know, we haven't heard from him and there hasn't been an extension. So my guess is, or at least my hope is that this gets resolved quickly and we can figure out more and hear from them hopefully next week because they got eliminated on Thursday here and it's been kind of radio silent. Down at Petco Park, Kyle Glazer of Friar Territory joining us here on Jon and Jim for a couple more minutes. So getting back to on the field and the players that the Padres, you know, need to bring back, or at least should bring back of their free agents, the guys that, you know, the Arises, the Cease, the King. I mean, you can throw in Iglesias, but it's not really that big of a priority in my opinion. You feel like the player that they should try their hardest to bring back is Michael King, right?
So it's interesting. I actually think the first thing they do is they pick up Ramon Laureano's club option, no questions asked. Mm-hmm. I also think bringing Ryan O'Hearn back would be smart. Depends a little bit on the price point. Again, they really need to focus all of their available resources on the offense. You know, regarding Michael King, look, he's going to opt out. He's going to make a lot more in free agency than, you know, the $15 million he'd make with the Padres this year if he, accepted that. It's tough because on the one hand, he's a great pitcher who absolutely helps the Padres, but he's going to get paid and paid a lot. We're talking 6 years, 150, maybe even 175. I mean, pitchers who pitch at the level he has pitched at the last 2 years when healthy, that price point is typically $180 to $220 million contracts. He's not going to get quite that, but it's going to be a lot. And given the Padres' offensive struggles, given the long-term payroll issues they have, you don't know if signing Michael King to 6 years, $175 million is the right thing for the franchise, as great of a pitcher as he is.
So where do they go with their starting rotation? Because, like, I agree, the offense needs a little bit of an overhaul to an extent. Like, you need to be better offensively, but still, next year the rotation is Nick Pivetta, Joe Musgrove coming off of Tommy John, Randy Vasquez, JP Sears. I don't know who else. Maybe Yu Darvish if he doesn't retire. Like that, I don't think that's good enough. So where do they go for the pitching side here if Michael King's price points out of their range and Dylan Cease's price points out of their range as well?
This is the one thing you feel good about in regards to the Padres. They have done a tremendous job finding low-cost pitchers and helping them take the next step. You look at what they did with Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha. Let's not forget Nick Martinez and Robert Suarez coming out of Japan were not big-time guys at all. This is an organization that has done a really, really good job evaluating pitchers at the major league level, correctly assessing that they have more in the tank, acquiring them and helping them reach their potential. Again, we talk about the guys I mentioned. The other guys I'm about to mention cost a little more, but Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta, taking the leap from talented but inconsistent starters to true frontline rotation types. There's just been so many guys that the Padres have been able to take from middling to great, or not really guys on people's radars to, hey, this is a really quality starter. So whoever the Padres find in free agency, you can bet they're going to do a good job and unearth some guys that they can probably get on the cheap and turn them into effective starters just because they have such a great track record of doing it.
Moving over to the baseball postseason right now. Last night was just the most insane ending that you'll ever see. And Dodgers are now moving on to the NLCS. Does it feel like once again, this is the Dodgers to lose? Like the Dodgers, if they win a World Series, no surprise again here?
Well, I was on record as saying I thought whoever won the Phillies Dodgers NLDS would win the World Series. So I think that kind of does lock me into the Dodgers here. Their starting pitching has been absolutely fantastic. What they can roll out there now with Ohtani and Yamamoto and Snell and Glasnow, what Roki Sasaki has done to stabilize the bullpen, that's a very, very, very scary pitching staff, at the front and at the back. They have to figure out some things in the middle, but you could take that pitching staff with the offense they have. Yeah, I think they have to be the favorite at this point. They're a way better team than both the Cubs and the Brewers, so I expect them to reach the World Series regardless of who they play in the NLCS. And then once they get there, it's just a matter of, Seattle, Toronto, who's hot, who's rolling well, and we'll go from there. But I do think at this point, the Dodgers are the favorite now that they've eliminated the Phillies.
Is there any team remaining that you think could give them, a fight here?
The Mariners, if their starting pitching is healthy all the way through, they can match up really well with the Dodgers. When they can roll out Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert. And the big thing is if Brian Wu comes back from his pectoral injury, then the Mariners are a team who can match the Dodgers arm for arm in the rotation. They have a better bullpen, and they have a very, very talented lineup that when their guys are going can mash with anyone. So that's the one team I think matches up well with the Dodgers, but they've got to get there first. And that starts with Game 5 tonight against the Tigers and trying to take down Tarek Skubal, which is never easy.
No, it is not. Game 5 in Seattle. We're about 52 minutes away from that one. Winner moves on to the ALCS to face the Toronto Blue Jays. Kyle, enjoy the games tonight. Enjoy the rest of the postseason, and we'll catch up with you down the road this offseason. All right, man?
Thanks. Appreciate it. Happy to join you anytime.
All right, so Game 5 is underway in Seattle, and the Mariners have an early 1-0 lead over the Tigers. So we'll see if they can add on to that or if Tariq Skubal holds them to just one run. All right, coming up next, we'll wrap up the show, get you ready for the weekend. Stay with us right here on Jon and Jim on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, final segment of the week on Jon and Jim. We got a couple minutes remaining here, so Brent, let's get to it. All right, so today the Savannah Bananas announced their 2026 stadium schedule for their upcoming tour in 2026. And if you enjoyed Banana Ball at Petco Park like about a month ago, I want to say, maybe less than that,
something like that,
about a month ago. Well, the Savannah Bananas will be returning to Petco Park on March 21st and 22nd in 2026. So if you want to go watch the Savannah Bananas facing off with the new Loco Beach Coconuts, they will be back at Petco Park on March 21st and 22nd. I mean, they sold out Petco. It looked phenomenal. Trevor Hoffman coming into Hell's Bells. Like, the whole thing looked fun. Now, the whole thing is a giant bit. Not a lot of baseball was played. It's just a giant bit. But hey, it's a kids thing, and it's, if you enjoyed going to Savannah Bananas at Petco Park a month ago, then you don't have to wait long to go back. I mean, March is a couple months from now. A couple months. Let's see here. It's October, November, December, January, February. 5 months. That's a couple.
It's almost a half a year.
Yeah, it's not long. It's not like it's coming back next year at this time. So yeah, March 21st through the 22nd. All right. So the finale of season 2 of Peacemaker came out last night. And I don't want to get into too much spoilers here, because if you haven't watched it, I get it. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I'll just give you like my general thought on it. And Brent, if you want to, quick thought as well. And if you don't want to hear my thought, it's fine. But I was pretty disappointed. I was pretty disappointed in the season finale. James Gunn hyped the hell out of this thing. So I feel like I'm allowed to be disappointed in it. If James Gunn if he didn't say a word about like this season and things like, man, some pretty big names returning to this this season, and oh man, it's the best work I've ever done. It's the greatest. It's my favorite thing I've ever done in my entire career. Yeah, I didn't like it. I thought it ended in a way that more questions than answers, and I just didn't like it. Now, do I still trust James Gunn with the future of the DCU? I do, absolutely. But for me, I expected more in the finale of Peacemaker season 2. I thought the season leading up to that point was fantastic, but the finale for me, it fell flat. What about you, Brent?
It was okay. I was expecting a little more, but it wasn't enough that it ruined it. It was a lot of like setup, how like a lot of days, and you'll see movies now to where half the movie is just setting up for like a sequel.
That to me is not a finale. Then it's not a finale.
And
when you set up things in a finale, I need to know that it will be paid off in the future. And as you told me during the break, like James Gunn already announced, there will not be a season 3 of Peacemaker.
No.
So you set up things without I don't know, man.
But he said that they will get resolved, because he said they asked him if there will be a season 3, and Gunn said, quote, "No, this is about the wider DCU and other stories in which this will play out right now. That doesn't mean that there won't be. I don't never want to say never, but right now, no." He said this is about the future of the DCU. But he also said that you're going to find out more, and some of these characters will continue on. Just, he said, not exactly in Peacemaker 3. So it sounds like it will get finished and fleshed out. It's just going to be in other DCU projects. Like I already heard, like the Lanterns show is supposed to lean heavily into where they ended up with Peacemaker.
Okay, well, I have a problem with that. You want to know why, real quick? Because James Gunn has said that his projects aren't going to be like Marvel projects where you need to watch everything to understand it. It kind of feels like I'm going to need to watch everything to understand it. If you're going to lead stuff into other things, and then weave in storylines from other series into Lanterns and Man of Tomorrow and Clayface and Supergirl. If you're doing that, I'm cool with it. I'm fine. But don't tell me that you're not doing it when it looks like you're kind of doing it. We'll see. All right. I want to thank Kyle Glazer. Thanks to Brent. Thanks to all of you out there for listening and or watching today on YouTube. Aztec football tomorrow night. John returns on Monday. Until then, have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. Goodbye.